All right, good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us right here on Channel Africa. It's a new week. It's a new way of starting afresh, and we're definitely going to do that with you as we journey on how to become better Africans. How do we navigate the challenges of Africa in a way that is good for us, that's healthy for us, in a way that makes us better people for tomorrow. And we built this wonderful continent indeed. And thank you for joining us on DSTV. We are on channel 802 there. On OpenView, we are on the channel 628. And remember, you can join us on all our digital platforms. We are a digital station, so make sure that you are engaged and you stay with us on our social media platforms at Channel Africa 1 everywhere. You can find us there. And remember that we are also on our new website, www.channelafrica.co.za. Hey, what's coming up on the show? It's a Monday, so we've been doing a wonderful series looking at gender-based violence, and we've been kind of thinking about, okay, we've touched on so many things. What more can we look at that has to do with gender-based violence? Yeah. And the more we go about it, we unpeel this onion, and there's still more that we can speak about. So many conversations are coming out. That's how serious it is, gender-based violence in the world and on the continent. Today, we're going to be looking at sexual violence in marriages, a very real issue. When people get married, they think they're entitled, Bali.
Yeah, they do think they're entitled. And sometimes they feel that they're entitled to their partner's body. This happens more often to women where, just generally society feels that once you're married, your body belongs to your husband. But where are the lines drawn in that particular instance? Because rape and sexual assault can happen within the marital structure. So we'll be chatting about that, the realities of marital rape that are everyday realities for many people, and how the institution of marriage often is also upheld at the cost of women's dignity and safety.
And we need to understand what consent means in the framework of marriage. Many of us don't understand that. And then we have the African view. We always look at interesting conversations that are taking place on the continent, or trends that we are seeing as a team and saying, this is an interesting trend, let's discuss this one. And last week we had a wonderful vlogger who was actually someone who was displaying her life in the informal settlement that she lives in here in South Africa. And then we're like, I think this can actually take a different form through a debate. So that's going to be our debate today. Are vlogs from poverty-stricken community a form of empowerment or a new face of poverty porn? That's the question that we're asking today. And then we move into our nutrition and fitness feature.
Yeah, absolutely. There is a rise in malnutrition amongst children all across the African continent. And we're zoning into that in today's health and fitness and nutrition corner today, speaking about how the shape of hunger has actually changed and how new responses to the evolving nutrition crisis should look like. So that's going to be a good one. Come through, join us. We are at Channel Africa 1 on all our social media platforms. And of course, we're streaming live on Facebook and YouTube as well. Of course, our WhatsApp number as well is also available for the next 3 hours, where you can give us your views on today's conversations. That's +27 63 406 9126. Welcome to On The Move.
Africa, voici Abedi.
Oui, c'est moi.
Abedi est un passionné de musique dans l'âme. Il a un goût pour toutes sortes de musique et passe ses journées à écouter Channel Africa.
J'aime beaucoup la musique africaine.
Ok. Devinez quoi? Channel Africa veut aider Abedi et les mélomanes du monde entier à découvrir encore plus de musique incroyable. C'est pourquoi Channel Africa appelle les artistes africains à soumettre leur musique. Chers artistes, n'oubliez pas de nous fournir toutes vos informations pertinentes à l'email adresse musique@channelafrica.co.za. Les soumissions sont votre chance d'être entendues, mais elles ne garantissent pas une playlist. Toutes les soumissions seront soigneusement examinées pour voir si elles répondent aux exigences de notre station. Channel Africa, la perspective africaine. Annie Kalonji sur Channel Africa.
Comment est-ce que les militants et sympathisants du parti, les transformateurs, ont-ils réagi face à la condamnation de Succès Masra?
La condamnation de Succès Masra ne nous a pas surpris et les militants transformateurs ont été bouleversés et indignés étant donné que le verdict c'est un verdict lourd, illégal, injuste. Et donc, face à la répression dans laquelle le peuple tchadien est confronté, les militants transformateurs se sont résignés de ne pouvoir pas sortir, manifester. Et donc, c'est une situation totalement absurde pour un pays. Et aujourd'hui, nous célébrons le 11 août, fête de l'indépendance. On pensait que le verdict allait être plus ou moins clément, mais le verdict est sévère.
Annika Longi, tous les dimanches sur Mix Vibration.
Palesa and Benjamin fuel your day with fresh African perspective on Channel Africa.
Hey, we continue our gender-based violence series, an initiative by the South African Broadcasting Corporation, where we're broadcasting from. We've been doing this series all year, and we're going to continue. The thing about it, you think gender-based violence has one face, but it's so multidimensional, as we've seen, as we've been continuing with the conversations right here on The Move. And it is worrying indeed, the fact that, gender-based violence has so many facets and shapes, and the way it manifests in society, it's completely worrying. Today, we're going to be speaking about something that can be very much misunderstood on the African continent: sexual violence in marriages, which is a real issue, not just on the continent, but the world. But most of the time, it remains shrouded in silence and denial. It's critical that we learn more about marital rape, because it's a feature of many women's lives, and it's not uncommon for it to happen alongside other kinds of violence in marriages. They can also include emotional, verbal, economic, and physical harms. In African countries such as Ivory Coast, Gambia, Equatorial Guinea, Ethiopia, and others do not criminalize marital rape, which is also worrying. A country like South Sudan explicitly notes that non-consensual sexual intercourse within marriage does not constitute rape. So you see, we've got a lot of lessons to have here on the African continent, and a lot of movements to make, because it feels like we're not making progress here. Mfundo Ntandane is joining us on the line, a macro-level social worker and scholar, and we're going to chat a little bit more about this. Mfundo, welcome on Channel Africa.
Hello, welcome, my brother. Good morning to everyone.
Yeah, welcome on the show.
Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure having you here. Let's start from the beginning, right? Because, when you get married, from an African context, you feel like you have certain entitlements. In fact, you feel, especially as a man, that your masculinity is of authority. But most of the time, it is entrenched by the traditions that we have. I just gave you an example of what's happening in South Sudan. So some of these stereotypes are carried by our traditions and our cultures.
Exactly, my brother. And it always starts from even before the marriages. We will talk about the gender socialization. It always tells the man that the woman is an object, among many other things, especially an object for sexual pleasure, and then it goes to traditions such as the lobola, which endorses this entitlement over the woman, that the man can pay and exchange, items for the woman. It also magnifies the idea that the woman is an object, or is a property to be owned. That is why cattle can be exchanged for a whole human being. You understand? So now getting to the marriage setting, the woman has almost minimal choices and options as regarding to the right over which the men have to her.
There are a lot of phrases and conversations that we hear in our societies, even from the time that we were young. I mean, you were speaking about how, gender socialization happens within our communities. And society loves to speak about sex before marriage, of course, speaking about, how that is not allowed, but never conversations about what can or cannot happen in the sexual context within marriage. We've heard terms like conjugal rights. Are terms like these that have been portrayed in our societies those that exacerbate things like marital rape, because it sounds like the sex itself is the right that you have, and there is no right to refuse sex within the marital context?
Well, the conjugal rights in the marriage setting, it actually delineates or talks about what rights as far as sex is concerned in the marriage. It does not necessarily give the man or the other gender power over the other one, but the commission and the omission of that right can, violate the other person, needs for sexual experiment and sexual, experiences in the marriages. So it holds the other person responsible, over the sexual rights of the other person. For example, you are a husband in the home. You must, you have sexual responsibilities to your woman. You are the woman. You have got sexual responsibilities to your husband. So if you deny your husband the sexual pleasure, or if you deny your wife the sexual pleasure, then you have violated it. So it is almost on the good note when you speak about the conjugal rights, But on the other hand, when you speak about the violence, it does not occur from the boundaries of the conjugal rights. It almost occurs from entitlements that comes from religions and cultural malpractices. So it's the conjugal rights is always on the good note, because it seeks to describe the responsibilities and the right of each other as far as sexual pleasure is concerned in the marriage. But the violence comes from the malpractice of culture and religion in the marriage.
Yeah, I mean, could you explain a little bit to our listener what we are talking about when we speak about conjugal rights? Because other people would say, well, we all know what you mean by that, but could you help us understand it?
Well, when speaking about the conjugal rights, it's a right that you have. It's a right to sexual advantages and privileges once you get married. It also explains or describes the responsibilities that you are going to have in a marriage, to the other person in the marriage. It may range from sexual intercourse to describing the reproductive, healthy rights of the person, the choices, to the bodies that they will want, the family planning. It's not only the sexual intercourse, but when do you want to have it? As far as the woman's body and its configuration is concerned, it is also to protect, that, and also as far as the woman, the man's bodies and its configuration is concerned, per age, per its pathologies, and also the mental health that is relative to the man. So it will determine, the mood of the person. For example, a woman is expected to go in cycles in each month, if I am correct. So you cannot expect a woman to have an intercourse during those cycles, menstrual cycles. You cannot expect a woman to have sexual intercourse. And then in some cultures, when you are grieved, you cannot be involved in sexual intercourses, and grief occurs, in a number of settings where losses has occurred. You may have lost a job, you may have lost a loved one to death, so it allows you that opportunity and that privilege to abstain from sex, without the other person maybe feeling that, you are cheating on them or you are not loving them. So it's also therapeutic and educational and supportive on the other, in some aspects. It's not only that it is describing your rights to the other person so that you will remind them that, hey, I'm your husband, I married you, I've got the right over you. No, it just put the scope of sexual relations between two people who are married, and then it seeks to help them to broaden their scope about sexual relationships, and then what determines the sexual dogma of a person. It's not only the organs, but where it comes from, the mood, what generates it, and the responsibilities of the other person, in each scenario.
Yeah,
so that the other person is
when you make all these layered definitions of what is included in terms of sexual relations, it is very interesting because most of the time we think about consent differently within the marriage context, right? And I think at times when you think about consent, it becomes like a humdrum. We've been speaking about consent for so long. But however, in the marriage context, where does this discussion end? Who initiates that discussion? How do you leverage each other's rights as you've been speaking about them, Funda? But we'll unpack those after the break. We're speaking about sexual violence in marriages in our gender-based violence focus. We've been doing this series for a while as part of the SABC. Give us your thoughts on this one. What's your take? Do you think, women have rights in marriages when it comes to sexual decision making? Give us your thoughts on our WhatsApp number, +27 6346 9126, +27 6346 9126.
Gender-based violence is destroying lives and tearing communities apart. It happens in homes, in schools, at workplaces, and too often in silence. But it doesn't have to continue. If you see it, speak out. If you are hurting, reach out. Because doing nothing is not an option. Listen to all 19 SABC radio stations from Wednesday, 23rd of July for hard talk, discussions, advice, dramas, educational shows, and interviews around GBV with experts, survivors, lawmakers, and the whole country affected by gender-based violence. For all your favorite SABC radio stations, call 0800 428 428 to report abuse or get help. GBV, it ends with you. This message is brought to you by the SABC. Benjamin Moshatama and Palesa on the move.
As you can hear, your favorite SABC radio stations, including Channel Africa, have a gender-based violence-focused conversation throughout this year, and they don't stop. Today, we're speaking about sexual violence in marriages, and this is a very real issue that happens every day that is shrouded in denial and silence because of some of the traditional, societal and religious connotations that we've put on marriage that can sometimes harm women in that marital home. We continue this conversation with Mfundo Ntandane, macro-level social worker and scholar. Well, this conversation, Mfundo, will always have to come down to the conversation of consent. And it seems like society has a very different notion of what sexual consent looks like once a couple gets married. Let's chat a little bit about that.
Well, first of all, consent is a very beautiful thing, but unfortunately, it has been discussed, on a disciplined, biased manner. We always speak about consent when we speak about the legalities, of marriages, where somebody has, claimed that they've been raped, So that's where the society gets the opportunity to talk about consent. That's why it seems like it's a mountain in the marriage that couples must climb to reach the other one. But it's a very beautiful thing. It's a very beautiful thing. Before sex in the marriage, there are two people who have fallen in love. They care so much about each other. They've got developmental, complexities, biological, psychological. So I can't just have sex with my wife without finding her mood or working, to seduce her, to please her, to make her want to have the sex. Yeah. I cannot just have sex with my wife without finding out, biologically if she's fit for it, So the consent, it's me checking up on my wife, how is she today, and then if she says, today I had a very rough day in my work, and then it has, maybe my wife has a mental disorder such as anxiety, disorder, and then the boss at her work has mistreated her, and it has triggered that anxiety attack. And during that episode, I want to sleep with her because I'm the man, So that's bad. But a consent will say, I must check on my wife. Then my wife will tell me that today I'm going through this episode, and then I support her through that. We forget about the sexual thing, But in a context where a man is violent, entitled, does not even understand the concept of mental health, does not understand the concept of rights in the marriage. They think that because I paid for your lobola, we always had some aunties in the marriage who said, you can get angry, you can get tired, but from the waist down, you don't get tired.
You don't get angry.
Such narrative. Yeah, they produce the psychology that the woman cannot feel, the woman doesn't have right to their body. So
and you know what? At times it's also a thing of, what if there's nothing even happening in the woman's life? Just to give a different layer to the conversation. Maybe she's not tired. Maybe there's nothing bad happening in the day. Maybe today she just doesn't want to have sex. That's also allowed. But I think sometimes we create these extra conditions on what a woman's expression of her sexuality should be, and we put all these conditions to say why she must and why she shouldn't.
Sex, having sex should be a choice. It's a choice. You just have to say today I am good for it and I'm not. One man asked me while I was working in another system, says, you know what, is it rape when I get home and then my wife says he's not in the mood? And if your wife is not in the mood, help her to get in the mood. You must buy her flowers on it, work on these things, make the room, have that atmosphere for her to want, don't just pressure someone to be, otherwise they are very much allowed to say no to today. I understand, for whatever reason that both of you can work on, to find out and support him on that. But and it also goes back to the man. The man also has the right to say no.
True.
And also the number of, people speak about the number of rounds. How many rounds must I have? It also goes into this thing of sexual violence. So now because of that, I am yes.
Okay, I want us to talk a little bit about when rape does happen, because of some of, the traditional, the religious, societal norms that come into play. The same way when most African women, when they get married, a group of married women sit around them and give them a list of rules. That doesn't happen for men. And some of the rules would be things like, a woman doesn't sleep with her pajamas. She must sleep naked in the bed so that when her husband needs her sexually, then she must always provide that. And because of that, some a lot of women do get raped within the marital home, but there is a lot of shame of not speaking about it, and also a confusion on whether or not the rape actually happened, because the woman is told that this is your husband's right to get this whenever they want to. So who do you go to? How does this create a cycle where justice does actually not take place when women are raped within their marital home?
Well, first of all, when you feel like you are being raped as a married person, you immediately you start feeling like I'm being raped. Then you are being raped. Then you must go to the police or the social workers. Because there's no way you're going to feel that you are being raped when you're not being, raped.
Right.
So you must go to the police. Or you must go to the social workers or any person who is mandated to help you, going forward with that case. Otherwise, there are a lot of societal norms, and orders, and coming from religion and culture, that says a woman cannot be raped. And by the way, rape is a consent. The things that you do, that may make you feel like you are being raped, or that may constitute the rape. There are other couples who are doing it and they are not saying they are being raped.
Yeah.
So how you feel, if you feel like, I'm being violated here, maybe this thing that this person, and the best way to know that you're not raping your partner, consent is the checkpoint here.
Right.
You have to find out. And consent is can be verbally and can be physically. Even when even during the sexual intercourse, like along the way, then I would feel raped. Because maybe you decided to experiment in a certain way.
Okay, Mfundo, we'll have to leave the conversation there. We have run out of time. I really do wish that we had more time because there's so many layers to a conversation like this. Like you saying, if you feel violated as a married woman, go to the police station. That's also another layer because we know that those societal norms do bleed into our justice systems as well, where a woman can be told, hey, you're married and you guys had, marital sex. You shouldn't be here. You should go home and fix your domestic problems at home. So maybe that's another conversation for another day. But thank you so much for your time this morning, Mfundo. That's a macro level social worker and scholar Mfundo Ntandane, helping us in today's gender-based violence focus on the move, speaking about marital rape. It's 9:31 Central Africa time. Let's get our latest sports news.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
It's a very good morning from the sports desk. I am Mosibu Dimakura with your latest sports news at the Sawa. So the DR Congo's Saint Elu Lupopo stunned South African side Orlando Pirates with a comprehensive 3-0 victory in the CAF Champions League 2025-2026 second preliminary round tie. That result leaves the 1995 CAF Champions League winners Pirates with an uphill task when the tie shifts to Johannesburg this coming weekend. Meanwhile, in Yaoundé, MC Alger showed their resilience to draw 1-1 with Colombe FC. The host went ahead through Inno Luombe in the 14th minute, but the Algerian substitute Ayoub Gezela struck 5 minutes from time to give MC Alger a crucial away goal ahead of their return leg to be played in Algiers this coming weekend. Meanwhile, South African champions Mamelodi Sundowns started their CAF Champions League campaign with a dominant display against Nigerian champions Remo Stars in the second preliminary round encounter on Sunday. Although the Premier Soccer League heavyweights were playing away from home, they shone as well as dispatched their rivals and are now almost certain of reaching the group stages. Now, Sundowns coach Migaga Doso was pleased with the result.
But this was another story to be written on this first match. My impression is that we took it very serious, that we related with the need that we had to make an approach tactically very clear, considering the study we had from Remo Stars. And it's curious because exactly the first goal we scored is one space that we knew that we could use to find a free player to kick. And not easy to play against a team that has a lot of man-to-man marking in all over the pitch. We had to find the pass breakthrough a lot of times, so find the third man so that we could find a free player.
Further field down, Liverpool slumped to a fourth consecutive defeat for the very first time in 11 years as Manchester United won 2-1 yesterday to end their near decade-long wait for a victory at Anfield. Liverpool had only lost one of their previous 14 Premier League meetings between the two sides, and United had not tasted victory at Anfield since the early days of Jurgen Klopp's reign in January of 2016. Arne Slot as a Liverpool manager.
It is a difficult moment because you know how it works in football. If you lose a game of football, if you lose 2, 3 or 4, the main thing is that the players need to keep believing in each other and what we are doing is good. So if you play a game like this, I think they will be in the dressing room saying, what an amount of chances we had. But you can play a next game, maybe where you don't create as much. And this is always... Players, if you lose, players come off, thought they didn't have to be substituted, players who thought they had to play longer. These kind of things are quite normal in football.
On to hockey news now. The South African women's hockey team reaffirmed their continental dominance with a 4-0 victory over Ghana in the final of the 2025 Africa Hockey Cup of Nations tournament in Ismailia on Saturday, claiming their 8th title. And when the final whistle blew, it signalled yet another golden chapter in South African hockey history, an 8th successive African crown and a 6th consecutive final triumph over Ghana, underlining the team's enduring excellence on the continental stage. Now, the victory also confirms South Africa's place at the 2026 FIH Hockey World Cup as they continue now to fly the flag proudly for African hockey on the global stage. At the same time, the South African men's hockey side produced a performance of the ages to defeat Egypt 5-1 in the final of the same tournament in Ismailia, claiming their 8th continental title and also booking a place to next year's World Cup. It was the 7th consecutive AFCON title final between the two African giants who had played out to a 3-all draw in the group stages. This time, though, it was South Africa who left no doubt about their supremacy, combining composure, structure, as well as brilliance in front of goal to secure the biggest winning margin ever recorded in an AFCON men's hockey final. And that's a wrap from the Sports Desk at the Sawa. For any sports stories you'd like to share with us, our email address is newsroom@channelafrica.co.za. Alternatively, give us a call on +27 11714 4459. I'm back with more sports news in the next hour. For Channel Africa Sport, I am Moshatama.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African perspective. Got something to say? Are you passionate about issues that matter?
Do you have a voice that deserves to be heard?
Well, we've got the perfect platform for you. Call in or drop us a WhatsApp on +27 63 406 9126.
And we will call you back.
So you could have your say and be part of the conversation.
30 years of age. I just turned 30 on the 15th of November. So that's who I am,
It's not just talk, it's your chance to air your views.
Share your opinion.
Engage with a community that values your perspective.
Follow us on our social media.
Visit our website at www.channelafrica.co.za
and get ready to share your views
on Channel Africa,
the African perspective.
All right, let's quickly move on right now and get our latest business news from Buntle.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
Thanks, Benjamin. Good morning and a very good morning to our listeners. Our top story this hour, a U.S. jury has returned a historic verdict against BNP Paribas, finding that the French bank helped Sudan's government commit genocide by providing banking services that violated American sanctions. The federal jury in Manhattan ordered BNP Paribas to pay a combined $20.5 million to 3 Sudanese plaintiffs who testified about human rights abuses perpetrated under former President Omar al-Bashir's rule. Lawyers for the 3 plaintiffs, who now reside in the U.S., said the verdict now opens the door for over 20,000 refugees in the U.S. to seek billions of dollars in damages from the French bank. The trial focused on whether BNP Paribas' financial services were a natural and adequate cause of the harm suffered by survivors of ethnic cleansing and mass violence. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio and Liberian Foreign Minister Sarah Baisalo-Nyandi have met in Washington to discuss expanding cooperation between the United States and Liberia, particularly in the critical minerals sector. The U.S. State Department said over the weekend that discussions between the two emphasized the strategic importance of Liberia's vast mineral resources, including iron ore, gold, and other critical minerals essential to global clean energy and technology supply chains. The department said talks explored potential investment opportunities and avenues for greater U.S. participation in Liberia's mining industry, with the goal of promoting sustainable development, job creation, and mutual economic growth in the country. South African civil society organization The Green Connection has raised concerns over the cost to consumers in government's recently announced electricity generation plan. Electricity and Energy Minister Kgosientsho Ramokgopa yesterday announced an ambitious plan to build 105,000 megawatts of new generation capacity by 2039 to the value of almost $127 billion. The Integrated Resource Plan aims to stabilize the country's energy supply, attract investment, and promote economic growth. As part of the IRP, the country will see a shift in its energy mix, with cleaner energy sources like hydro, nuclear, wind, and solar reducing the country's reliance on coal. Community Outreach Coordinator at the Green Connection, Neville Van Roy.
The plan itself is a little bit confusing, claiming emissions reduction and affordability, which we both question in terms of the gas-to-power plan, as well as nuclear that is presented, both of being, which is expensive gas, being expensive on the climate and on people's pockets. We do welcome the renewable energy and the storage capacity that will be growing, but there is construction of energy infrastructure which we do not know who will bear the cost.
The Africa Maebuya movement in South Africa has slammed the city of Tshwane for allegedly spending $10 million on water tankers in the 2024-25 financial year. The movement has called it a blatant misuse of funds, alleging that it's benefited contractors linked to city officials. The chairperson of the movement in Tshwane is Dr. Musileni Du Plessis.
What is actually so disgusting is that the city wants us to believe there's a water crisis. And from where we are sitting as Maebuya, we say there is no water crisis in the city. Here we have a situation where the city officials collide with the tankerpreneurs to cause the problem, and then work to be seen to be resolving the same problem they caused. So the question you ask yourself here is, who is on the other side of these tankerpreneurs? Who benefit from these contracts?
China's top leaders are starting a 4-day gathering in Beijing to decide on the key goals and aspirations for the rest of the decade. The country's highest political body is expected to address issues like the slowing economy and the trade war with the US. The BBC's Nick Marsh has more details.
Recently, China's 5-year plans have focused on high-quality development and putting China at the cutting edge of things like chip making and artificial intelligence. Until now, China's relied on advanced chips from the United States. But that could change if the next 5-year plan includes President Xi's call for new productive forces. That means developing high-end tech, yes, but with the national security twist of making China self-sufficient.
And now taking a look at the indicators, one US dollar in Nigeria is trading at 1,468 naira this morning. In Botswana, it's 13 pula 25. Kenya, the dollar is trading at 128 shilling 39, and in Zambia, it's at 22 kwacha 71. Moving to the BRICS countries, $1 in Brazil is trading at 5 rial 40. Russia, it's 81 rubles 11. In India, it's 87 rupees 98. China, 7 yuan 12. And South Africa, $1 is trading at 17 rand 34 cents this morning. $1 is trading at 74 pence to the British pound and 85 to the euro. Looking at commodities, gold is trading at $4,261 per ounce, platinum at $1,600 per ounce, while the price of Brent crude oil is at $61.09 a barrel. And those are your business news. For any business news stories you'd like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or give us a call on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa Business, I am Buntle Hetbush.
Business News on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Mix Vibration sur Channel Africa.
Qu'est-ce qui vous a amené à dire ça? Est-ce que vous avez observé un certain nombre d'événements dans la vie? Est-ce que c'était par rapport à une expérience? Est-ce que vous avez rencontré des choses qui vous ont dit il faut de la patience, comme ça les choses vont venir au bon moment et les bons dieux pourra peut-être me visiter?
Oui, c'était justement un conseil que le Seigneur m'avait inspiré pour donner à son peuple, parce qu'il y a la plupart des gens, pendant que Dieu bénit les autres, ils pensent que Dieu les a oubliés, et pendant que Dieu ouvre pour les autres, ils pensent que peut-être Dieu n'a pas pu écouter leurs prières. Alors, ce n'est pas le cas. Alors, Dieu bénit tout un chacun de nous avec son temps. Donc, le temps de Dieu est toujours le meilleur dans la vie de tout un chacun de nous.
Mix Vibration, tous les dimanches de 18h à 19h, temps universel.
9 to 12 midday, Central African Time.
On the move with Palesa and Benjamin Moshatama.
Hey, probably the biggest song right now in South Africa and the biggest vocalist there in the form of Mawu. There she's collaborating with GL_CK and Tela rather, and that one is titled Bengi Tela, and that one also features jazz works. It's 9:50 Central African time. We're going to be speaking about this conversation we just had with our guest a few minutes ago, speaking about the problem of sexual violence in marriages, marital rape to be more specific. We'll continue chatting on that after the break. We were speaking to Mfundo Ntandane, macro level social worker and scholar on that one. Let's take a break. We'll be back.
Madapiri bazoshitika. Madapiri bazoshitika.
Mafuta galimoto akwera mtengo mdziko la Malawi ndipo nkhani anthu ayilandira mosiyanasiyana ndipo mtolankhani nzathu mdziko la Malawi Kondwani Nyamasauka tili naye pa line pano kuti atifotokozere zambiri. Kondwani, kodi uli bwanji? Mafuta galimoto kodi akwera kufika pa bwanji?
Mafuta galimoto akwera mene tuyankhula pano kukambonena kuti usiku wathawu petrol wakwera kuchokera pa 2005 3,530 kwacha kukafika pa 3,499 kwacha. Kuma nkhani ya mapercentage ndi 38.30%. Pamene diesel wachoka pa 2,734 kwacha kukafika pa 3,500 kwacha. Yomwe ikuimira kuma percentage 28.02%.
Zochitika pa nthawi ya 6 koloko kufikira 7 koloko madzulo. Lolemba mpaka lachisanu ndi Madapiri.
Palesa and Benjamin fuel your day with fresh African perspective on Channel Africa.
Hey, it's 9:52 Central African Time. We've been speaking about our GBV feature. It's been going on and on and on. And the more we do these conversations, we sit as a team and we say, okay, where do we go from here now? Because we think that we've got everything on wrap and we've got it like figured out, and we like maybe we've done our job right now, and we're completely done with the different conversations that we should be having with our GBV. And then we go to our bosses and say, hey guys, you know what, we've done this thing, look, what do you think? Let's wrap it up now. And they'd be like, no guys, it's not over.
It's not even close to being over. But the one thing that's been surprising is that even when we feel that way, the following week comes, gender-based violence focused conversations come, and there's something else, and there's always something else.
And I always feel sorry for our producer, and I'm like, okay, where are you gonna go with this one this time around? How are you gonna approach this? Because we've touched on it in so many different ways, and then she goes into her magic box of ideas and she comes up with something, but it's not just coming up with something for the sake of it. Every time we do come up with a topic and a conversation, we worry even more because there is something.
There is something. And that's where the problem is, right? This, in fact, is a great example of what's going on in society, because we have sort of packed all the gender-based violence focus or gender-based violence conversations into one, and we don't really look at some of the micro issues that exist in our communities. And only when we hear about them, only when we see them, only when we hear someone else speak about them, we're like, oh yeah, that too. And we've sort of sidelined so many of these conversations that are actually taking place every day in our societies. And it shows how shrouded and silent, how much silence there is around gender-based violence within our communities, because there's so many conversations to be had that we don't even see. And not just conversations, so many things that are happening in our societies that we don't see, and therefore we don't think about.
Yeah, well, coming to today's conversation, speaking about marital rape, it's a tough one, right? Because we as a society are not told that someone's body is their property. There's no circumstance in life that it happens where someone's body can be your property. It can never happen. But in our societies, we feed this notion that just because you're in a relationship with someone, just because you pay dowry for someone, it means that, you know what, I own you. There are pieces of you that are part of your body that belong to me. And that's where I think we've gotten it wrong. Let me repeat this again. There is nothing in someone else's body that belongs to you. Someone's body is their property, just as much as you own your own house or your flat or whatever property you might have, right, or wherever you live. If a stranger just comes in, or if an uninvited guest comes in, or even a family member who hasn't called in to say, I'm coming over to your house, as much as you'd be upset about that, that's the same thing with someone's body. You can't get in if you're not invited.
But what's most worrisome is that we do continue the cycles that allow these things to happen within marriages, but also that allow silence to be a norm, that allow the fact that, when these things do happen to women in the marital context, they have nobody to speak to, not their friends, not their in-laws, because we've made it normal to say, but your body belongs to your husband, therefore it should be okay. And it's 2025 now, and I promise you, perhaps this weekend, there was somebody who was getting married a woman who other women sit down to say, don't forget that in the marital home you don't sleep with pajamas. Don't forget that in the marital home when your husband wants this, it still happens in 2025, and that is a continuous cycle. That means that even 10, 20, 30 years from now, we can have this conversation in the exact same context and still no justice will be provided because the cycle doesn't stop.
You know what people think? I'll tell you what people think. They think because now you're married to someone, the two are now one. You are one property. No, you are not one property because you're married to someone. You're still separate properties, unfortunately, if you think that way, because we feel entitled to these things because sometimes of religious beliefs. I'll speak as a Christian myself. You know, I've heard people say these things. I'm like, nah, I'm trying to look at the scriptures and try to turn this Bible upside down. I'm not really finding the point whereby just because you're married to someone, they are your property. It just doesn't work like that, right? And that's where consent comes in. Consent is asking. Simple. Ask. Yes, they are your wife. But make sure that when you speak to that person as your partner, you are actually getting their permission. Yes, you have to get permission. That's their body, belongs to them. And once you think that it belongs to you, getting yourself in big trouble, or you are going to make that person's life miserable. What's your take when it comes to marital rape? We're speaking about this one, an unpleasant one, but we need to talk about these conversations constantly. I want to get your thoughts on our WhatsApp number, +2763 406 9126. You can text us or voice note us on that one, and would love to get your thoughts on that one. I see people coming into our live stream. Thank you for joining us there. Remember, we are live. You can join us on our Facebook page. Our Facebook page is simply titled Channel Africa, or you can find us on our YouTube page. Thank you to those who've joined us. A few names there: Stephen Apia, Dave Asianguni, so many of you, Joseph Kente, all of you who are there in our live stream, coming in and out. I know 3 hours is not something that you can always stay in, but if you pay us a visit in our streams, remember, let us know what you think about the conversations that we are having, but most importantly, let us know where you are listening to Channel Africa from. Hey, it is Monday today, so we have The African View. It's always fun having that one, isn't it?
Correct. The African View is the debate that we have every Monday here on The Move, and today we're speaking about content creation, but content creation that really spotlights some, poverty, spotlights the not so glamorous, the not so easy, the not so good looking and aesthetic kind of content. Does that mean that we are using poverty as a way to gain traction on social media? That's just but one of the conversations that we'll be having, but it's going to be a debate between our guests, but also a debate that you can have with us via our social media platforms. So let's wait for that in the next hour of the show. That next hour is happening just in a couple of seconds, right after our news updates. That's where we're headed right now. Let's get our latest news.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Palesa. Looking at your top stories, Amnesty International accuses Tanzanian authorities of ramping up crackdowns on opposition figures. And U.S. President says ceasefire in Gaza is still in place. Your latest news. Greetings to our listeners. According to Amnesty International, Tanzanian authorities have ramped up crackdowns on opposition figures, journalists and civil society, restricting free speech, assembly and political participation. This is as the country gears up for general elections on the 29th of this month. Amnesty has reported that key opposition presidential contenders have been barred, arrested and enforced disappearances documented, with reports of extrajudicial killings. Regional researcher for East Africa with Amnesty International, Roland Ebol, explains.
I would say nothing really new in as far as in 2020, Amnesty International published a report and the report, we called it Lawfare, where we made findings about the late President Magufuli using various kind of laws to repress on the rights of Tanzanians before elections and to suppress dissent. This year, again, 5 years later in October, we are again publishing another report called Unopposed, Unchecked, Unjust, The Wave of Terror, sweeping Tanzania ahead of 2025 vote.
Zimbabwe's President Emmerson Mnangagwa's bid to extend his ruling tenure up to 2030 has been confirmed by the just-ended ZANU-PF conference that was held in Mutare over the weekend. Mnangagwa has previously denied having ambitions to extend his rule, saying he is a constitutionalist. This resolution means his Deputy General Constantino Chiwenga may not be able to take over from Mnangagwa in 2028. Zimbabwe's opposition leader Job Sikala, a veteran of Zimbabwe's pro-democracy struggle and former MP, says this is creeping authoritarianism at its best.
It is the entrenchment of the authoritarian dictatorship in our country, whereby the center wants to entrench itself and continue with its politics of plunder and looting of the national resources. So the Zimbabweans know that the resolution does not center on the need of Zimbabweans, but on the need to entrench the individual interests of the ZANU-PF looting elite. So it is a protection provision which they want to do to our constitution.
The South African Parliament's ad hoc committee investigating the KwaZulu-Natal Police Commissioner Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi's allegations will resume its work tomorrow. Police Minister Senzo Mchunu, who has been on special leave since July, will continue giving evidence, while the former Crimes Intelligence boss Richard Mdluli has formally requested to testify before the committee. Mchunu has so far defended his decision to issue a directive to disband the KwaZulu-Natal Political Killings Task Team in December last year. He says he briefed President Cyril Ramaphosa on the decision and he backed it. Mkhwanazi has accused senior police officials, including Mchunu, of corruption, interfering in police operations and having ties to criminal syndicates. Namibia's Ministry of Health and Social Services has declared an outbreak of Mpox in Swakopmund. The ministry made the announcement in a post on Facebook. It says surveillance, contact tracing and response teams have been activated. Mpox is a viral infection that can be spread from other animals. The virus causes flu-like symptoms and an itchy or painful rash. Lastly, U.S. President Donald Trump says the ceasefire in Gaza is still in place. His statement comes hours after health officials in the territory confirmed that Israeli airstrikes have killed more than 40 people. Israel says this was a retaliation of the killing of 2 of its soldiers near Rafah in southern Gaza. Hamas has denied any knowledge of the incident. The BBC's Yolanda now.
Israel's military launched dozens of strikes after it said its troops operating in Rafah in southern Gaza were attacked by Hamas fighters, but within hours it said it had resumed enforcement of the ceasefire. Israeli media say that a decision to close aid crossings to Gaza was overturned following US pressure. Mr. Trump's special envoys Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner had already been expected in Israel. They're due to meet the Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu later. The Hamas chief negotiator Khalil al-Hayya is meeting Egyptian mediators in Cairo to discuss next steps in the ceasefire deal.
Now, recapping on your top stories, Zimbabwe's President Emmerson Mnangagwa's bid to extend his ruling tenure up to 2030 has been confirmed by the just-ended ZANU-PF conference held in Mutare. For any news stories you'd like to share with us, please send us an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us at +27 11 714 4459. Channel Africa News, I'm Onele Tsinzi.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
It's 5 minutes past 10 Central Africa time. We're in the second hour of On the Move. You're tuned into On the Move right here on Channel Africa. And no matter where you are, it's so simple to be a part of this family. It's so simple to listen to the show, and it's so simple to engage with us. Find us on our brand new website, www.channelafrica.co.za. Our audio bouquets, DSTV channel 802 and OpenView HD channel 628 and the SABC Plus app. We're going in the cubicle. Well, no, we're not going in the cubicle. We're going into the African View. That is our Monday debate feature. I love this one because we're bringing in two individuals who are going to debate a contentious issue on the African continent. And just last week, we had this incredible young lady who goes by the name of Shaz. And she's a content creator who spotlights her everyday life. She lives in a squatter camp, or also known as an informal settlement. So there's shags, there aren't any roads, there isn't proper infrastructure, but she still vlogs her day, her going to work, using public transport, etc. And some people call that poverty content. It's actually on the rise. More and more people are actually showing their real life situations outside of what has been made normal on social media, being aesthetic, being aspirational, being pretty. But we're speaking about that in today's debate, and we're finding out if vlogs from poverty-stricken communities are a form of empowerment or the new face of poverty porn. That's a very contentious one, right? Because I'm pretty sure there's so many people on either side of this conversation. In fact, it's been making the rounds and trending quite a bit on South Africa's social media, saying that, hey, some people saying, I don't know why people are continue to try and uplift those who are doing this kind of content, but as soon as they do better, their numbers actually lower. As soon as they leave those areas, as soon as they do better for themselves, their numbers lower. Is this a new form of poverty porn? So we'll be chatting about that in this hour of the show, bringing two of our guests who are going to go at it in today's debate, and then we're going to wrap it up in the conversations of the day in our final hour in nutrition and fitness, speaking about malnutrition, which still is quite a huge problem on the African continent and all across the world. So stay with us.
I was speaking to my cab driver this morning, and we had such a interesting conversation around communities. Have you noticed how, like, from an African context, like, you must know your neighbor. You must know who lives even behind you, everyone around you must kind of get to know their names, right? And they kind of form a bond, and you kind of become like a family, right? In different societies in Africa, we've got the kind of family thing. Well, here on Channel Africa, we call ourselves a Channel Africa family, and you can be part of that family on our social media platforms. Remember, you can find us on all platforms using that handle at Channel Africa 1. Go to X and you can find us there. Go to Instagram, YouTube, go to TikTok, go to Instagram. We are everywhere. I'm giving you that list because we are everywhere. Use that handle at Channel Africa 1, and let's make this family bigger here on the African continent and stay in touch with the African perspective.
Ukatili wa kijinsia unaharibu maisha na kutenga jamii. Utokea nyumbani, shuleni, kazini na mara nyingi kwa ukimya. Lakini hauwezi kuendelea. Ukiona, ongea. Ikiwa unaumia, funguka, kwa sababu kutofanya lolote sio chaguo. Sikiliza vituo vyote 19 vya redio kuanzia Jumatano ya tarehe 23 Julai kwenye mijadala, ushauri, tamthilia, maonyesho ya elimu na mahojiano na wataalamu, manusura, watunga sheria na nchi nzima iliyoathirika na ukatili wa kijinsia kwenye vituo vyako pendwa vya redio. Piga simu 0800-428-428 ili kuripoti unyanyasaji au kupata msaada. GBV, ikomeshwe na wewe. Ujumbe huu umeletwa kwenu na shirika la SABC.
Palesa and Benjamin, fuel your day with fresh African perspective on Channel Africa.
Content creation is amazing. And what I find really amazing about content creation is that there are people from all walks of life whose insight we get into, right? We sort of take a little step into your world when you post on social media, whether you're at a restaurant or you're at work, or maybe you're just doing your daily chores in the home. There's content out there for everybody. One kind of content, though, that has always been sidelined is content of people who come from really poor backgrounds. And, you know, because social media has become quite aspirational in all its forms, people like to put out the best part of their lives, the best part of themselves, and sometimes the most aesthetic parts of themselves. But there's a growing trend, particularly on TikTok, where people from all walks of life are vlogging their daily lives. We had just one last week. Her name is Shaz, and she vlogs her daily life going to work, coming home. But she lives in a squatter camp, a place with no proper infrastructure, with shacks and floods when there's rain, and she still shows that in her daily life. That has gone on the rise. And today's African View, which is our debate for the day, we're asking the question, are vlogs from poverty-stricken communities a form of empowerment or a new face of poverty porn? We'll also have that up on our On The Move poll at Channel Africa 1 on X. That's the same question we're asking you. Do vlogs from poor areas empower creators or exploit their struggle? The options we give you there, it is true empowerment, it is poverty porn, it's a mix of both, or it depends on the intent. But today we have two people coming in to debate this particular conversation. Noluthando Dlamini is the head of talent, influencers and experiential at Orchard on 25. We also have Murray Legg, the co-founder of Webfluential, an influencer marketing platform. Thank you both for coming in to join us in today's debate. Quite relevant that you both work in the social media space, and I think it's great to have you both as a part of this debate. Thank you, Noluthando, and thank you, Murray, for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
Well, I'm going to start with you, Noluthando. Let's hear which side of this debate that you stand on and what you think on whether vlogs from poverty-stricken communities are a form of empowerment or the new face of poverty porn.
I think poverty blogs, bad term to use, but they are a form of empowerment. I think for decades, stories of poverty have always been told about these communities, and that's by the communities themselves. And I think blogging has helped shift that narrative. It's allowing the people from those poverty-stricken communities to speak for themselves, to own their stories, and to really transform visibility into opportunity. So I don't really think it's poverty porn. I think it's just a more modernized form of empowerment and digital liberation.
Murray, let's hear your opening thoughts on this discussion.
Sure. Remember the days when we used to be able to choose the genre of the content that we were watching on Netflix. You could choose a comedy, you could choose drama, you could choose a thriller or a horror. Mm-hmm. But today, or the content du jour is everything that is anxiety provoking. Those are the things that tend to get the most amount of dopamine response from people, and as a result, that's the nature of the content that gets shown to us on all of these algorithms. So the more shocking and the more real it is, the better traction it's likely going to get. And I think that's by human nature design, actually, because the humans are the ones that are clicking on those things and watching them over and over and over again. And so the algorithms are saying, oh well, we got to share more of that. So I think people are learning from the system that it's this amazing feedback loop. The more we can share the face of anxiety that we all experience, the better traction we're going to have.
Murray, someone might say, no, man, it's not like that. This is not tragedy. It's actually the lived experiences of some people. What do you say to that?
So, yeah, I'd probably say there, Benjamin, that there's a cry for help in various layers. So maybe the first responders are saying, oh, wow, that's pretty hectic that's your experience of daily life. But, if you have to dig deeper, what sits behind that initial call for help? Is it looking for empowerment? Is it looking for sympathy? Is it looking for some kind of upliftment, maybe from someone in another country? And I guess, we have to maybe dig into and segment why people are sharing this type of content. what is it that they're actually looking to get? Is it just an emotional response? Is it, some kind of help, or is it some kind of a change in their life?
Let me come back to you, Noltando. You say that more than anything, those who vlog their lived experiences in poverty-stricken situations, that they are, empowering themselves, or it is a form of empowerment. But as Murray said, it's a two-way street, this content creation. There's the creator themselves and those who view the content that they put on social media. Let's come into those who view. Do you think that those who view the content of this kind of this kind of creator is looking at it to try and empower the creator, or are they looking at it to sort of feel like their lives are better off than this particular creator's life?
I mean, that's a good question, and I think it's two-pronged. I think that it could be either or, but I do not think that people are necessarily looking or watching the kind of content from a place of feeling better about themselves. I think there has been quite a debate on social media around content that is relatable, right? And relatability, again, is subjective, right? My sense of, or my lived experience is very different from the next person. So we know that there is some sort of a fatigue around the super luxurious way of life, and it has impact on the younger generation quite a bit. So I do think that being able to see something or see content that is a lot more relatable to the average South African's lived experience can't be viewed as a negative thing, but rather I see myself in the most authentic and real version of what it is to live in South Africa. I think it also boils down to how we, for instance, used to talk about representation and say when we were watching television growing up, we wanted to see people who look like us, who speak like us, who live life like us on television. Why is it any different in social media? Why should the people who live in Alex or Tembisa or in the Cape Flats not see a reflection of who they are on these platforms?
Yeah, that's an interesting one. And let me take it to you, Murray. Someone said like Tembisa. Nolitando was like Tembisa. I'm from Tembisa, actually. And it's interesting that the township kind of is associated with a stereotype of poverty, right? And I wonder if we associate poverty with the correct things here. And I'm wondering, because when you started the conversation, like there's a shock factor there. But coming from the townships, I don't know, maybe I was supposed to feel shocked when I woke up every morning, but it was kind of a normal thing for me. It's where I came from. I felt like a lot of love to this day. I still go back to my neighborhood just to feel that sense of love. Is it maybe your interpretation, Murray, because you come outside of that context, maybe you see a sense of shock in what maybe we could call as poverty porn, but for the rest of us it's like so normal?
Yeah, I guess, all the content that we view online is a form of representation of everybody's life. And you raised a great point just now about, we get exposed to the super lux and the bling and lifestyle of the rich and famous. And that becomes the aspiration, where TikTok kind of comes into play as it gives the real format of life for the everyday person. And the reality is, for the country that we live in, we have far more people in poverty than we do at the top of the pyramid. So as a result, the quantity of content that's going to come out from townships is going to be higher than that of the lux. So I think it's possibly a representation of, just the Gini coefficient that we have in our country. Mm-hmm. But I don't think it necessarily has to mean that it's coming from a place of dissatisfaction or unhappiness. There's all those studies that go into the happiness quotient of people that have lost their mobility, that they've maybe lost their legs in an accident, and they all tend to trend back to, the normal average. So I don't think that there's an unhappiness. I think maybe it's just a representation of it. and it's expression of what life is like on the ground for, real people.
Yeah. All right, stay on the line, both of you. We'll continue this debate after a very short break. The question of today's topic is, are vlogs from poverty-stricken communities a form of empowerment or the new phase of poverty porn? Let's hear your thoughts as well. This debate doesn't only belong to Nolutando and Murray, it belongs to you as well. And we want to hear your thoughts on this one. On our social media platforms, at Channel Africa 1 on X, we have our On The Move poll there, and of course, streaming live on YouTube and on Facebook.
The Morning Switch Weekend with the Shy Guy.
The story that takes us to Zambia. There are two men actually that were sentenced to prison for the plot to kill the president with witchcraft. You go like, what? So these guys were arrested actually in Lusaka, and what was found on them was a live chameleon. Can you believe that? Animal tails and bottles of concoction. That law takes us back to 1914, which is the Witchcraft Act. I can imagine now arrested and they go to jail for the next 2 years. I presume that when you get to jail, they get to ask you actually, what is it that you committed? Now, this is the first of its kind, by the way, for somebody to be arrested for such. They in Pemba, whenever they pass, hey, Chikanga, hey, Uloya, hey, Mulosi. And imagine here I am in these early hours of the mornings, I get to talk about witchcraft.
Saturday and Sunday mornings belong to the Morning Switch. 3 to 6 a.m. Central African Time. Step into the heart of the day on the move with Palesa and Benjamin.
Hey, let's keep things moving on our The African View feature today. Our debate topic today: are vlogs from poverty-stricken communities a form of empowerment or a new face of poverty porn? We're speaking to our guest Nolutando Dlamini, Head of Talent at Influencers and Experiential at Orchard on 25. We also have Murray Legg, co-founder of Webfluential and influencer marketing platform. Murray, just after just before our break, it seems like you've shifted a little bit from where you started with the conversation here in terms of maybe you are speaking around the algorithm in itself. I'm interested in your perspective there, in what the alternative would be in making sure that there is kind of a diverse mix of content creation.
So Benjamin, there's an interesting part of the algorithm which talks about the aspirational content, and what that does is, if you imagine marketing 101 used to be brands saying these are the things that you should do and these are the products that you should buy in order to transform yourself from your aspirational endeavors. Now marketing almost runs itself because the people are, from across the spectrum are sharing their lifestyles, the products they use, the experiences they have, and they almost include these products, organically. So, marketing is a great running flywheel, and what brands would typically say, if you're using brand X, you might aspire to use brand Y, and the algorithm helps with that. I think where we talk about, the reflection of daily lives coming from, the poor side of the fence or the tracks, I think that's also telling a story about how the transformation happens. And where the algorithm would get to work there is to say, the people that are experiencing this degree of poverty are still telling a story. They've still got a voice. They've got a dog in the fight, and this is how things evolve for them. I think on a global stage, it's always interesting to see that, and we'll tend to double click and re-watch things when they are anxiety provoking, whether it's the latest explosion in Gaza, whether it's the live streaming of the murder of Charlie Kirk, or it's the everyday person relaying their story on the ground in South Africa. So the more we watch it, the more we click on it, the more voyeuristic we tend to be, the more these types of content will get served by the algorithm.
Yeah. Nolutando, let's add a spanner in the works of your argument here. Yes, you are right to say that these people that do these content creators represent a large number of the people in the context of where we are South Africa and all across the African continent. But if this content is truly empowering and is moving away from poverty porn, why is it that many of these content creators who do this type of content, as soon as that empowerment comes into play, as soon as they start making some money from their content creation and they fix their environment and maybe move out of that environment, that their numbers lower? Are the audiences stuck on you and, you being authentic only in that poverty environment because it is poverty porn? And why is it that, they don't relate to you the same way when you have a more aspirational life because of the empowerment that the platforms have offered you?
So I think what typically happens is that it's not that the audience stops relating to you because you are no longer in the same position. I think what typically tends to happen, and where the content creators themselves sort of lose it, is that the core of the content isn't really just the background that they're in, but there's some sort of personality that is with it. And more often than not, audiences are either stuck to content or stuck to personality. So there's one of two things that really makes them or draws them to a particular content creator. And some content creators are able to carry those audiences through once they find themselves in a much more, I don't want to say better position in life, but once they've progressed their lives, if I should say. And some do struggle to continue with their audiences because they have a complete shift in what their audience is about, and they have a complete shift in speaking to the audiences in that same voice. So sometimes it's not only on the poverty porn, and I won't take the poverty porn part of it away. I think I would rather focus on the more empowerment part, where growing with your audience is important, but sometimes audiences, and it's one thing that we always speak about in our industry, of our audiences are quite fickle, right? And they really do move around very often, but it is possible to carry on and carry forward your audience. Just knowing what your audience likes is the most important factor in being able to retain them once you are now no longer in the poverty, so to say, space.
All right, let's wrap this one up. We've run out of time. I want to get your final sentiments in terms of, what you think, considering the opposite viewpoint. Marais, your take, considering the elements that were brought forward by Noluthando?
No, Lucinda, it's been a great discussion. Thank you. And it's super to open this up for discussion. I think my summary would be that this is a form of trauma bonding. Everybody has a background and everybody's come from somewhere. And a lot of people have come from the townships, but they've made great successes of themselves, and often in the form of content. But sharing it with their audiences and sharing the life that they have is a form of bonding. And as much as it's porn, poverty porn, I think bonding is actually where it's at.
Noluthando, have you made a shift in your assessment considering Marais's views?
No, I haven't. And thank you, Marais. You've really brought up some really good points. But I haven't made a shift from the poverty porn, but I would agree with sort of the popular phrase trauma bonding. But I do believe that this form of content and this form of or this genre of content on social media is very important, so that people don't really forget what life is about or what life is. I think sometimes we focus too much on, I want to be on a private jet to Greece, and forgetting that life is what you make it, and you can always come out of any situation, no matter how disadvantaged you may be, right? So I do think it does also give some sort of hope to other people who are in the same circumstances to know that I can make more of myself, and this is a way for me that could assist me in getting to the next phase of my life.
All right, we'll leave it there. Thank you guys for giving us your time. Thanks to
Really
Nolu
nice.
Tando Te Dlamini, Head of Talent, Influencers and Experiential at Orchard on 25. Very compelling thoughts coming from you. And equally compelling is Murray Legg, co-founder of Webfluential, an influencer marketing platform. Thank you both for joining us, and thank you for these compelling thoughts.
Thank you so much for having us.
All right, it's 10:30 Central African time. Let's keep things moving. What's your take on that one? Do you think that vlogs from poverty-stricken communities are a form of empowerment or a new face of poverty porn? Remember, that WhatsApp number is there for you. +27 63 406 9126. You can text us or voice note us on that WhatsApp number. It's 10:31 Central African time. Let's move things on to our sports.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
It's a very good morning from the sports desk. I am Mosibu Dimakura with the latest sports news at the Sawa. We'll start with football news. So Simba SC underlined their pedigree with a professional 3-0 win away from home, and they were playing in Zigenzi Hotspurs in Eswatini. Now Wilson Nangu scored the opening goal in that encounter against the Eswatini side. It was in the CAF Champions League second round preliminary stages, and 2 late goals were then scored in the 84th as well as the 90th minute. The Tanzanian Giants, semi-finalists back in the 2020-2021 season, dominated proceedings and barely allowed the host to sniff at goal. That result putting the Tanzanian side in firm control heading into the return leg that will be played this coming weekend. On to some cricket news now. England booked their place in the semi-finals of the Women's World Cup after a thrilling 4-run victory over the co-host India in Indore last night. Now set 289 to win, India were cruising at some point where they had 234 for the loss of 3 wickets, with opener Simrati Madhana well placed on 88. But the opener's soft dismissal caught down the ground of spinner Lindsay Smith in the 42nd over and was a turning point as the co-host completely threw away the winning position. The run rate climbed, and although Dipti Samara's gritty half-century kept India's hopes alive, the middle order buckled under the pressure, and with a 14 needed from the last over, Smith held her nerve, with India finishing on 284 for the loss of 6 wickets. On to some motorsport news now. Max Verstappen claimed a dominant United States Grand Prix victory ahead of Lando Norris as the pair made significant inroads into Oscar Piastri's Drivers' Championship lead. Now Verstappen followed up Saturday's sprint win with the lights to flag a triumph for Red Bull at the Circuit of the Americas, while Norris made a late pass on Ferrari's Charles Leclerc to salvage second place as the McLaren teammate Piastri toiled to 5th position. Now, a third win in 4 races for Verstappen brings the Dutch man within 40 points of Piastri, with 5 rounds of the 2025 season remaining, while Norris closes to within 14 points of the lead. Let's hear from Verstappen following that win in the USA.
We found a good way with the car. It's simple as that. Of course, we put some upgrades on the car, but we understood our car a bit better, where we wanted to perform better. And every weekend we try to achieve it. Some weekends, it's better than others, but in general, it's been way more straightforward the last few weekends compared to before those races. So that's what we need to try and extract out of it now every single weekend. Yeah, I think we need to be perfect till the end.
On to tennis news now. Elena Rybakina rallied from a set down to beat Russian 4th seed Ekaterina Alexandrova 3-6, 6-love and 6-2 to win the Nigbo Open title on Sunday, as her late surge to reach next month's WTA finals gained momentum. Now, a 10th career title for Rybakina means the player only has to reach the semi-finals of the Pan-Pacific Open in Tokyo later on this week to seal the last qualifying spot for the season finale at the expense of Russian teenager Mira Andreeva. Others who have qualified for the WTA finals to be held in Saudi Arabian capital city Riyadh from the 1st until the 8th of November are Arina Sabalenka, Iga Swiatek, Coco Gauff, Amanda Anisimova, Jessica Pegula, Madison Keys, as well as Yasmin Paolini. Meanwhile, a resurgent Daniil Medvedev claimed his first title for 282 days with a victory over Corentin Moutet in the Almaty Open final yesterday. Now, the Russian former world number one had a torrid year, winning just one match at the Grand Slams, as well as suffering a meltdown at the US Open just a few months back. So Medvedev's inconsistency at the ATP Tour, as well as struggles with serve in particular, led to him dropping out of the world number 10, as well as then ultimately splitting with long-term coach Geles Sivarava. Now working with Thomas Jonasson as well as Rohan Gotzia, Medvedev has steadily improved in the past month, culminating in a hard-fought 7-5, 4-6, 6-3 victory over his French opponent just yesterday. And it's also Medvedev's first title since the 2023 Rome Masters and his first on the hard court since March of that same year. Victory also means Medvedev has won 21 titles at 21 different tournaments. It's 10:36 a.m. Central African Time and concludes your sports news this hour. For any sports stories you'd like to share with us, remember to send us an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11714 4459. I'm back with the final sports update for the morning in the next hour. For Channel Africa Sport, I am Moshatama Di Makura.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Parlez-vous couramment le français? Êtes-vous passionné par la radio? Et êtes-vous qualifié pour travailler en Afrique du Sud? Envoyez-nous votre CV et vos 3 minutes démo en MP3 à @channelafrica.co.za pour avoir une chance de rejoindre la famille Channel Africa. Si vous n'avez pas de réponse après 14 jours, cela signifie que vous n'avez pas été retenu. Channel Africa, la perspective africaine.
Hey, Buntle Headbush joins us right now to give us our latest business news.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Thanks, Benjamin, and a very good morning to our listeners. Our top story this hour: a U.S. jury has returned a historic verdict against BNP Paribas, finding that the French bank helped Sudan's government commit genocide by providing banking services that violated American sanctions. The federal jury in Manhattan ordered BNP Paribas to pay a combined $20.5 million to 3 Sudanese plaintiffs who testified about human rights abuses perpetrated under former President Omar al-Bashir's rule. Lawyers for the 3 plaintiffs, who now reside in the U.S., said the verdict now opens the door for over 20,000 refugees in the U.S. to seek billions of dollars in damages from the French bank. The trial focused on whether BNP Paribas financial services were a natural and adequate cause of the harm suffered by survivors of ethnic cleansing and mass violence. U.S. Secretary of State Mark Rubio and Liberian Foreign Minister Sarah Baisalo Nyandi have met in Washington to discuss expanding cooperation between the United States and Liberia, particularly in the critical minerals sector. The U.S. State Department said over the weekend that discussions between the two emphasized the strategic importance of Liberia's vast mineral resources, including iron ore, gold, and other critical minerals essential to global clean energy and technology supply chains. The department said talks explored potential investment opportunities and avenues for greater U.S. participation in Liberia's mining industry, with the goal of promoting sustainable development, job creation, and mutual economic growth in the country. South African civil society organisation The Green Connection has raised concerns over the cost to consumers in government's recently announced electricity generation plan. Electricity and Energy Minister Khusienzo Ramokgopa yesterday announced an ambitious plan to build 105,000 megawatts of new generation capacity by 2039 to the value of almost $127 billion. The Integrated Resource Plan aims to stabilize the country's energy supply, attract investment, and promote economic growth. As part of the IRP, the country will see a shift in its energy mix with cleaner energy sources like hydro, nuclear, wind, and solar, reducing the country's reliance on coal. Community Outreach Coordinator at the Green Connection, Neville Van Roy.
The plan itself is a little bit confusing, claiming emissions reduction and affordability, which we both question in terms of the gas-to-power plan, as well as nuclear that is presented, which is expensive gas, being expensive on the climate and on people's pockets. We do welcome the renewable energy and the storage capacity with that will be growing, but there is construction of energy infrastructure, which we do not know who will bear the cost.
The Africa Maibuya movement in South Africa has slammed the city of Tshwane for allegedly spending almost $45 million on water tankers in the 2024-25 financial year. The movement has called it a blatant misuse of funds, alleging that it's benefited contractors linked to city officials. The chairperson of the movement in Tshwane is Dr. Muselene du Plessis.
What is actually so disgusting is that the city wants us to believe there's a water crisis. And from where we are sitting as Maibuya, we say there is no water crisis in the city. Here we have a situation where the city officials collide with the entrepreneurs to cause a problem, and then work to be seen to be resolving the same problem they caused. So the question you ask yourself here is, who is on the other side of these entrepreneurs? Who benefit from these contracts?
China's top leaders are starting a 4-day gathering in Beijing to decide on the key goals and aspirations for the rest of the decade. The country's highest political body is expected to address issues like the slowing economy and the trade war with the US. The BBC's Nick Marsh has more details.
Recently, China's 5-year plans have focused on high-quality development and putting China at the cutting edge of things like chip making and artificial intelligence. Until now, China's relied on advanced chips from the United States. But that could change if the next 5-year plan includes President Xi's call for new productive forces. That means developing high-end tech, yes, but with the national security twist of making China self-sufficient.
And now taking a look at the indicators, one US dollar in Nigeria is trading at 1,468 naira this morning. In Botswana, it's at 13 pula 25. Kenya, the dollar is trading at 128 shilling 39. In Zambia, it's 22 kwacha 71. Moving to the BRICS countries, $1 in Brazil is trading at 5 rial 40. Russia, 81 rubles 11. In India, it's 87 rupees 98. China, 7 yuan 12, and South Africa, $1 is trading at 17 rand 34 cents this morning. $1 is trading at 74 pence to the British pound and 85 to the euro. Looking at commodities, gold is trading at $4,261 per ounce, platinum $1,600 per ounce, while the price of Brent crude oil is at $61.09 a barrel this morning. And those are your business news. I'll be back with another update in the next hour. For any business news stories you'd like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or give us a call on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa Business, I am Buntle Hetbush.
Business News on Channel Africa. The African Perspective. Call us on +27 63 406 9126.
I can see my whole world changing.
And contribute to the conversation.
On the Move, weekdays, 9 a.m. to midday.
Only on Channel Africa. #On the Move.
Okay, this is a good one, an interesting one, a beautiful remix, bringing the old and the new Revic Jazz, remixing a beautiful oldie by Sanko Moda. This one is titled Now or Never. So chatting about this, right, in today's African View debate, speaking about whether, poverty, people who do content from poverty-stricken communities are doing it for empowerment, or is it a new form of poverty porn? We also have that up on our X handle. Our On The Move poll is up and ready for your engagement. Do vlogs from poor areas empower creators or exploit their struggle is the question we're asking you. The options we give you there is that it's true empowerment, it is poverty porn, it's a mix of both, or it depends on the intent. And so we continue this conversation. There's so many people who've actually been actively hitting a debate about this on social media, but also about, how poverty content creation, or this genre of content creation, is quite contentious in the social media space and also in our communities as the observers of this online community. Let's hear this particular thought.
Rava 10 crash out. So this guy is basically saying for you to go viral with vlogs, you either have to be very rich, Lamborghini, Ferrari, or be staying in a shack, bathing in a bucket. In my opinion, it's not that middle class content doesn't go viral, but it's about what emotions are you evoking. When you're creating content, you're either making someone angry, or you're either inspiring someone, or you're making them laugh, or whatever it is. So I think with the guys in the one room, first of all, that's brave just to come and say, you know what, guys, I stay in this one room and this is what I'm doing. And those guys are really making nice videos. And the other thing is there's people who are saying, okay, so brands are just now paying people for poverty and whatever it is. No, guys, the reality is, I don't think there's a lot of money in brands and influencer marketing as there was, let's say, 2 years ago. I think they are very selective. Brands are really looking to say, you know what are we really getting out of this influencer for them to put out their money? So you really need to think out of the box, put your own products behind your videos, or solve other people's problems. Let me know what you think. Cheers, bye-bye.
Well, that is an opinion on TikTok by @HenryThePlug. And I think we've been looking at this quite two-dimensional. There's a third layer, actually, that adds to this conversation.
Commercialism.
The commercialism, right? The brands themselves who come in and fund these particular content creators. So that's going to be an interesting one. We should look at that. But for now, let's take a quick break.
Mix Vibration sur Channel Africa.
Qu'est-ce qui vous a amené à dire ça? Est-ce que vous avez observé un certain nombre d'événements dans la vie? Est-ce que c'était par rapport à une expérience? Est-ce que vous avez rencontré des choses qui vous ont dit il faut de la patience, comme ça les choses vont venir au bon moment et les bons dieux pourra peut-être me visiter?
Oui, c'était justement un conseil que le Seigneur m'a fait inspirer pour donner à son peuple, parce qu'il y a la plupart des gens, pendant que Dieu bénit les autres, ils pensent que Dieu les a oubliés, et pendant que Dieu ouvre pour les autres, ils pensent que peut-être Dieu n'a pas pu écouter leurs prières. Alors, ce n'est pas le cas. Alors, Dieu bénit tout un chacun de nous avec son temps. Donc, le temps de Dieu est toujours le meilleur dans la vie de tout un chacun de nous.
Mix Vibration, tous les dimanches de 18h à 19h, temps universel.
The rhythm of Africa, the pulse of the continent. This is Channel Africa, the African
Benjamin Moshatama
perspective.
and Palesa
On the move.
Open the fire, play the bed, do let them know. No finish you, no finish you. Man, no fit tire, every day I'm on the road. No limit you, no limit you. This now so good. Would you turn down for who? Would you robo? Many things we can do. Tori, I'm into you. Would you wire for you? Tonight I'll be dancing at the fade away. Yola balaba, give me your hand and shoulder. To see shoulder get up, blessings for your head up. Yola balaba, give me your hand and shoulder. But I know go get us, better go locate us. Yola balaba, give me your hand and shoulder. To see shoulder get up, blessings for your head up. Yola balaba, give me your hand and shoulder. But I know go get Bella. No one can do you better. You body fall from me. Why now go shoddy? Love the energy tonight. Way cool day my side, but now you day my mind. Man, with you don't show. Listen now, so good. Would you turn down for who? Would you robo? Many things we can do. Tori, I'm into you. Would you wire for you? Tonight I've been dancing at the pen away. Yeah. Jola balaba, give me your hand and shoulder. To see shoulder get up. Blessings for your head. Jola balaba, give me your hand and shoulder. But I know go get us. Better go locate us. Jola balaba, give me your hand and shoulder. To see shoulder get up. Blessings for your head. Jola balaba, give me your hand and shoulder. But I know go get us. Better go locate us.
Hey, that's Ijo Laba by Crayon there, taking us to 54 minutes past 10 o'clock Central African time. You can always be part of the conversations we have on air. Remember, all you have to do is go to our at Channel Africa 1 X handle and get in the action. We're asking this question today on our poll: do vlogs from poor areas empower creators or exploit their struggle? We've got 4 options there. The first option being true empowerment. Second option being poverty porn. A third option being a mix of both. A fourth option is depends on intent. I don't know. I think even the idea of poverty porn is one that's interesting. I've actually seen so many videos. Well, I don't know. The algorithm is weird. While I'm on social media, I'm just seeing
once you start speaking about something, it's gonna flood your social media.
So I'm navigating social media right now. I'm just seeing poverty porn. Yeah, I think sometimes people are taking it overboard because they're seeing the commercial aspects of it, right? So it's like, okay, this is working for this person, so it's gonna work for me. Yeah. Remember when we were growing up, if you saw a lady sitting outside selling something, like maybe selling amazimba, selling like chocolate, selling all of a sudden there's 5 mothers in the same street selling the same thing, right? And we have that kind of thing as Africans, like when you see one person doing it, then everyone starts doing it. If that's what's happening, I really believe it is poverty porn, because you're not being genuine. And I think the intent behind it is something important. Yeah, I'm seeing my friend who's advertising his poverty porn here. He's making a lot of money. I'm going to do the same thing. Yeah. But that person didn't start with the commercial aspect out of it. Probably started with, I'm just showing off my life. And this thing got traction. And then the advertisers went on.
You know, it could really go both ways, and that's the really the hard part about this particular conversation, right? Because if you look at what has been flooding our social media platforms, it's been aspirational content. So the middle class or up to the higher class, and people sort of climbing up the ladder, posting the cars when they buy something new, posting their houses, the kinds of work they do, etc. Everybody has been seeing that going on, and people have been jumping on that as well, which is the really same example, right?
Isn't that another form of bling porn?
Yeah, I hear it, right? And on the other end, there are, I'm pretty sure, so many people who have been wanting to be content creators and just felt that they didn't fit in because they didn't have all the fancy things that everyone else is doing. So when they see someone who, you know, is showing their real life, but in, you know, those poorer areas, and showing them like, hey, I actually didn't know I could do this. This person is also doing it and they're doing so great. I've always wanted to be a content creator, but I always thought I was too poor to do it. So now I've gotten, you know, the guts to do it. Now I've gotten the inspiration from you, the person who's already do it. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to try it as well. I don't know if it's going to give me money. I don't know what it's going to do for me, but I go ahead and try. And perhaps it does have positive outcomes. My issue is the audience. And I don't think that the intent for me, my issue is the intent of the creator themselves, because a creator just creates. My issue is the intent of the audience. Is the audience absorbing this like poverty porn? And are the brands themselves also, empowering these creators because of the poverty porn aspect, seeing that, okay, this person is getting numbers. That means a lot of people relate to them, because a lot of people in South Africa, a lot of people in Nigeria, a lot of people in anywhere aspect on the African continent come from these backgrounds, so they're going to get support. Let us advertise our brands here, because in that way we can use this person's poverty to, get the name of our brand out there, and we'll pay them, essentially empowering them.
I think they interrelated these things. I mean, if there's going to be a commercialization, everyone is going to jump in and say, I'm going to create poverty porn just to get the money. So it's an interesting one, right? So
and isn't the money empowerment on its own? I mean,
is it really?
If you come from a poor background and you start making money, that is empowerment. Everyone is trying to make money.
Yeah, it's just the intention, because are you exploiting the environment that you come from, the environment you're in? I've noticed people also using children in these things. I'm like, okay, I know as a journalist, when you use children for anything, you have to think about labor rights and all those things, right? So there's all these peripheral things that we're not thinking about that actually could be harming those people, or even harming them, not just indirectly but directly as well. Give us your thoughts on this one. Do vlogs from poor areas empower creators or exploit their struggle? Remember, we've got 4 options there. True empowerment being the first one, poverty porn being the second one, third option being a mix of both, and the fourth option is saying depends on intent. I'm with you guys there with them. Depends on intent. I see there's 50% of you who've already voted on that one. Give us your thoughts on that second hour conversation. It's going to keep going until we wrap up the show. So you can go to @Channel Africa 1 on X and participate. It's 1100 hours Central African time. Onel Nzinzi is joining us right now to give us the latest news.
SABC News. The African perspective.
Thank you, Benjamin. Looking at your top stories, Tanzanian authorities accused of ramping up crackdowns on opposition figures, journalists and civil society, and the former French President Nicolas Sarkozy to begin his prison sentence. Your latest news. Greetings to our listeners. Amnesty International has accused Tanzanian authorities of ramping up crackdowns on opposition figures, journalists and civil society, restricting free speech, assembly and political participation. This is as the country gears up for the general elections on the 29th of this month. The general elections are expected to be dominated by the ruling Chama cha Mapinduzi party, with the 2 main opposition presidential candidates locked out from contesting. Regional researcher for East Africa in Amnesty International, Roland Ebole, explains.
Government critics have been disappeared, including critics who are in the ruling party itself. Others have been killed, others have been threatened, while others have been prevented from moving around even to do their own campaigns. So we are seeing a very fearful electioneering period. We are seeing an electioneering period whereby President Samia Suluhu Hassan will only need to be declared president, but will not really be facing challenge because she has simply suppressed all the challenge that is available to contest against her.
Civil society group Stand Up South Africa is leading a march to the union buildings in Pretoria to demand President Cyril Ramaphosa's resignation. Marchers met at the Church Square in the city centre before embarking on the action. The Tshwane Metro Police Department has advised motorists to use alternative routes because of potential traffic disruptions in the Pretoria city centre. The group's spokesperson, Castas Mtetwa, says they are planning more marches across the country.
We encourage people to come because it's a peaceful march and it will be a great march. This is a beginning of a rolling protest that we have to spread throughout the country in a peaceful manner. But we want President Ramaphosa to step down, not to be replaced by Paul. We don't want Paul either, to give Parliament an opportunity to elect a consensus leader amongst themselves who can do a better job in the meantime.
A witness has started to testify before the Madlanga Commission of Inquiry in Pretoria, South Africa. They are one of 3 that will testify partially in camera from today to Wednesday. The witness testimonies expected are related to their experience as detectives investigating criminal cartels. The commission is investigating allegations of criminality, political interference and corruption in the country's justice system. Residents of Sudan's besieged city of Al-Fashir have been taking refuge in underground bunkers to try to protect themselves from drones and shells after intensifying attacks on displacement shelters, clinics and mosques. Famine-stricken Al-Fashir in the Sudanese army's last holdout in the vast western region of Darfur as it battles the paramilitary rapid support forces. According to the United Nations, more than 1 million people have fled Al-Fashir during an 18-month siege by the RSF. The RSF and its allies have been blamed for waves of ethnically driven violence in Darfur during the war, with the U.S. determining last year that they had committed genocide. Former French President Nicolas Sarkozy is set to begin his prison sentence tomorrow in Paris Centre Prison. Sarkozy will begin an unprecedented 5-year prison sentence for criminal conspiracy over attempts to raise 2007 election campaign funds from Libya. Sarkozy, who has always said he was innocent, was found guilty of criminal conspiracy over efforts to close aids to procure funds for his successful 2007 presidential bid from Libya during the rule of late leader Muammar Gaddafi. It was the 3rd time Sarkozy was convicted of fraud-related charges. Now, recapping on your top stories, Amnesty International has accused Tanzanian authorities of ramping up crackdown on opposition figures, journalists and civil society, restricting free speech, assembly and political participation. Channel Africa News, I'm Onele Tsinzi.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
All right, we're moving into the final hour of On the Move. Remember, keep that On the Move poll going. We'd love to hear from you, listeners of Channel Africa. Remember, all you have to do is go to Channel Africa 1 and give us your thoughts there. We're moving into this hour with a very wonderful theme that many people think is, straightforward. We're speaking nutrition and fitness, and most people think that malnutrition means that you must be a thin person, right? But it doesn't look like that. You can be overweight and obese and still not eating the right foods, which means that you still struggle from malnutrition. And this affects a lot of children on the African continent because of the misperceptions of what nutrition looks like.
I think it joins in quite well with the conversation we were having on poverty porn, right? Because it's about the perceptions that have been put out there. When we think about hunger, you think about all those TVs, those movies where there's someone skinny almost anorexic looking and, in this particular environment. But image. Just because you look healthy doesn't mean that you're not malnutritioned, because nutrition is more than just a look. It really is about what goes into your body. We'll be speaking about how the shape of hunger has changed and how a new response to the evolving nutrition crisis should look like. So that's going to be an interesting conversation in this hour. Continue, participating on our On the Move poll at Channel Africa 1 pertaining to our second hour conversation. But you can also comment for this hour's conversation as well. Whatever intrigues you, we want to hear from you. And of course, go through and stream us live on Facebook and on YouTube. It's another hour of On the Move. Let's go.
África. Conhece o Ntivani?
Claro que sou eu.
Ntivani é o amante da música de corpo e alma.
Eu amo música africana.
Ele aprecia todos os tipos de melodias e passa os seus dias a ouvir a Channel África. Adivinha só, a Channel África quer ajudar o Ntivani e os amantes da música em todo o lado a descobrir ainda mais música incrível. Por isso, a Channel África está a convocar artistas africanos a submeterem as suas músicas. Músicos, lembrem-se de nos dar todas as informações relevantes no music@channelafrica.co.za. As submissões são a vossa oportunidade de ser ouvidos, mas não garantem inclusão na lista. Todas as submissões serão cuidadosamente analisadas para verificar se cumprem os requisitos da nossa estação. Canal África, a perspectiva africana.
Hashtag on the move and connect with us.
I'ma get no be so. Girl, you won't capture my soul. I'ma get no be so. Make we one umbo. Beru, bye. Beru, bye. I'm loose. Even Beru done the para. Tonight in Josie, I'm in Josie. Won't call if you want Josie. I'm not playing with you, I'm not joking. My thought album is loaded. Me, you can fag up, but I'm on duty, but I'm on low-key. They want do me, they want do me. Cause they want, when you won't want me, I'm in San Francisco, Jammy. When you won't want me, I just flew in from Miami. Peru, para, I'm loose. Even Peru done the para. Pour out the bottle, I wanna level up. When I'm with you, I never get enough. Slow wine, I'm not in a rush. I can hear music when you're here. Tonight we're rolling, party till closing. Since I put the ring on the finger, it's still frozen. Love in slow motion, I wanna feel you over me, yeah. Certain magic in your eyes, yeah. Girl, I love the way you ride it. And it happens every time you arrive, that's right. Girl, I want you in my life, yeah. There's a heaven and it's right here. I will never leave your side, stay tonight. When you won't see me, I'm in West London this evening, giving me the feelings, no I'm not leaving, till I fly LA next weekend. Peru, nah, girl I'd rather go find somewhere quiet, you glow.
Hey, this was a famous song that made international headlines. That is Fireboy DML with Ed Sheeran with Peru, taking us to 10 minutes past 11 o'clock Central African time. We're coming back to look at the face of nutrition for children in our nutrition and fitness conversation. At times we think that nutrition means that you are plus size, but no, on the African continent it's not the case. According to UNICEF's latest global report, obesity has taken underweight as the most common form of malnutrition among school-aged children and adolescents. We'll be speaking to Nelly Zembe, Group Head of Monitoring, Evaluation, Research and Learning at Africa Tikkun. That's what's coming up.
Benjamin Moshatama. 9 to 12 midday Central African time. On the move with Palesa and Benjamin Moshatama.
All right, let's come back into this discussion of the show today, and we are looking at something very important because it challenges the stereotypes of what we see when we think about malnutrition. Sometimes you think it's all about being underweight, but no. malnutrition doesn't only look like an underweight child anymore. Experts say they are increasingly seeing children who are overweight or obese because they're not eating the right foods. Families are filling stomachs, not nourishing bodies. According to UNICEF's latest global report, obesity has overtaken underweight scenarios as the most common form of malnutrition among school-aged children and adolescents. To help us to talk about how this looks like, Nelly Zembe is joining us on the line, Group Head of Monitoring, Evaluation, Research and Learning at Africa Tikkun. Nelly, thank you for joining us right here on Channel Africa.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I mean, it's a thing that probably was shaped by how we grew up seeing what malnutrition looks like on the African continent. We've always thought that being underweight is what we should be avoiding as malnutrition, but it's not that simple.
Yes, and that's what mainstream information tells us. It's a stunted child. You see them, they are, smaller than the rest of the children, their age group, and that is still a problem on the continent, with about 27% of children actually in Africa being undernourished. In South Africa, this number is actually, it matches the continent as well. But what we're seeing is that more and more, the number on the other side of malnutrition is also increasing, with almost 15% of children now being overweight and some obese. And this is also a symptom of malnutrition. And when you trace it back, it's directly connected to everything that is happening in the country. And so when we are putting in interventions, we're almost forced to look at it from both angles, because there is no way of predicting how this is going to affect children now.
Yeah. Nelly, I think the words themselves are what have been confusing us for the longest time in terms of our perception of malnutrition, because we think that malnutrition means hunger. So obviously, if you're hungry and you don't have food, you're going to look a particular way. But it doesn't particularly mean that if you're malnourished, you're hungry. Are those two, am I correct to say that?
There's still a connection, right? Because if you're hungry and the family can't afford nutritious food, they're then going to opt for the cheaper options of food, which is your carb-dense, very carb-heavy kind of food. And so at the source of the problem is still hunger. It's still affordability of food. But what then happens is either a child goes without completely, which then leads to, being underweight, being stunted, and them just being smaller than the rest of their development is then delayed. But on the other angle, where parents can afford even little, they're then opting for, your pap, it's porridge in the morning, it's pap in the evenings. We're not focusing on things like your vegetables and fruit that are high in fibers and high in the kind of nutrients that children need. And this is of no fault of parents as well. They're going for the options that are accessible to them and what they can afford. So I would say hunger is still the problem at the end of the day. But now if you add affordability into the mix, we're seeing now years later that a problem that used to be amongst adults, we were seeing obesity and overweight as children were in their adolescence. But now we're seeing it earlier, right? We're seeing it as early as 2, 3. You can tell that children are overweight.
Let's talk about that, because, I want us to just divide some of the elements that you've spoken about. I mean, we'll speak a little bit about the obesity problem, but let's start with the cost of food as a problem there, because we've had a lot of people in this feature coming in and saying, no, vegetables are not cheap. They're not, expensive. They're pretty cheap. You must just make provision in your budget. Is it that simple to say, no, vegetables are not cheap?
So vegetables are not cheap, especially if you're looking at getting them from, big supermarkets. And we can't deny the fact that fruit and vegetable is expensive, right? It's fresh fruit, it's fresh food, and so they also want to move it quickly. It's not as affordable as it is to the average person in South Africa. So there is quite a lot of people who it's inaccessible to, but also it's not as affordable as the price tag on it. It's the consistency that you need. It's not a matter of having vegetables once in a week and then we call it affordable. But I think we also need to look at the source differently, right? We've become so accustomed to having everything ready that we are not really getting to the bottom of, can we even supply our own vegetables? And so this is where we come in as Africa Tikkun, and in so many different angles, we've been promoting growing your own vegetables, right? So when you have that relationship with vegetables that is coming from a very primary perspective of seeing it grow, of nurturing it, of eating it fresh, having it in whatever form, it changes your relationship with fruit and vegetable as well.
Let's speak about some of the interventions that you guys have come up with at Africa Tikkun. Of course, there's so many communities that are in need. In fact, the majority of people in South Africa and on the continent are in need. So how do you fill this gap where you realize that malnutrition is actually, big in many of these communities?
So in a couple of ways, because we are working from cradle to career, which is from 2 years old all the way to 35. We've got children and young people of all sorts of ages in our centers and at our different sites. So nutrition and what we do for the programs is also very different. The one thing that's common is everyone receives at least 2 meals a day. And this is in support of everything else that we're trying to do with education support, skills development. We've recognized that you can't do that with someone who's hungry. You can't do it with someone who hasn't been fed enough or who hasn't been fed well. And well is particularly important, especially at the 2 to 6 age group, where we are really focused on gross motor development, fine motor skills, the stuff that we might think is a luxury, but directly connects to the cognitive development of children. And so at that age group, we're providing 4 meals, right from breakfast when they arrive, whether they've received it at home. We're equalizing all children that come to us to say the meal is there and it's available if children need it. And what we found is that parents also then just come to appreciate that option as part of the offering of the program. But more importantly for us, as we monitor body mass index by measuring their heights and weights 4 times a year. We are looping that with feedback with parents where we're picking out children who are underweight or who are obese. We're then having the conversation very early with parents to find out what's happening. Sometimes it's just a misinformation thing that's happening. Mm-hmm. Sometimes parents are actually thinking the overweightness is a good thing, right?
Yeah.
They're like, no, but I thought my child was healthy. And then you start to really educate as early as 2 when they're with us. And parents are very willing to engage with us if you connect with them as equals and not necessarily as the authority figure who's walking around with a stick talking about children's weight, right?
Absolutely. And that association that you've made is so interesting, the fact that in our communities, obesity is seen as a happy child. Oh, this child is so happy, must eat a lot. I mean, how do we deal with those kind of things? Because also we've got that trauma with poverty history, right? Where we come from. I never ate, so my children need to eat, So that's always the frame in which we see how we raise our kids and the relationship that they have with food as well. We'll speak a little bit more about that, Nelly, after our break. We're speaking to Nelly Zembe, Group Head of Monitoring, Evaluation, Research and Learning at Africa Tikkun. What's your take on this one? Remember that WhatsApp number is still there, +27 63 406 9126. Engage.
Africa in Business on Channel Africa.
The United States was very vocal at the beginning of South Africa's G20 presidency, and this is largely due to strained relations with South Africa at the time, that they were not really keen on participating. Where do they stand right now?
The U.S. is planning to take over the presidency of the G20 next year, and our understanding from them is that they intend to continue to do so, and therefore it is quite difficult then to be in a situation where you are not attending deputies' meetings or discussions during our presidency and then to take over the presidency next year. From a finance track perspective, there has been engagement. We've been working on a communique last week and this week here in Zimbabwe. What's important about that is that it's a consensus document. And so all the members in the room have to agree to the language that is used there. And our US colleagues have been part of those discussions and negotiations.
Bringing the African markets into your home. Channel Africa, the African perspective. Palesa and Benjamin fuel your day with fresh African perspective on Channel Africa.
We're still speaking to Nelly Zembe, who's the group head of monitoring, evaluation and research and learning at Africa to Kun, an organization that's trying to change the face of nutrition in many malnutritioned environments here in South Africa, saying it's not enough to count how many children get fed, but we do need to ask, what is it that they're eating that can contribute to malnutrition? You know, before the break, just to backtrack a little bit there, Nelly, you spoke about, the fact that parents had these misconceptions about what nutrition actually looked like. And of course, that look of, hey, if you look a particular way, that means you must be well fed. And so parents say it all the time. It feels a little bit like an African proverb. I take good care of you. I feed you. Look at how big and healthy you look. So everything must be okay. And you say as African Tikkun, you're also taking, outside of the nutrition programs themselves, you're taking on the responsibility to teach parents how to keep their children well fed with the right nutrition. What are some of the misconceptions that you've heard that parents have about nutrition, and some of the thoughts and questions that they have around making sure their children are healthy and not malnourished?
And that's exactly it. The main thing is, that my child is healthy, right? They're not hungry. I'm feeding them well. I'm doing my best. But because we're so focused on holistic development, we have to pay attention to what's happening, even at that level. It's not something you can ignore just because your focus is on the education and development of the child. Everything is connected, especially at that age. So another thing that also comes up is, this is genetic, right? This is in my family.
We're all like this.
We're all like this, it's always been like this, it's never been a problem.
Mm-hmm.
Or, they'll grow it out, this is baby fat. And so all of these things, it's not to judge parents per se, right? Because we've all shared these perceptions at some point. What makes a difference is when there's been intentional awareness raising and when it's not done from a judgmental perspective. And so in our capacity, we make sure that we're talking about this and we're talking about it openly. And we're also showing parents the why, right? This is not just a matter of, because textbooks say this is what it's supposed to be. We're making the connections for them, the long-term connections, and really linking it to how children are performing at all developmental stages. But it's not just at that level, right? Sometimes you also see it with adolescents. So even in our after-schools program, we are wanting for parents to understand the importance of just having that hot meal, even if it's one meal after school. There's a place where you can actually find it and the difference that it makes for the studying and how they show up for their school. But more importantly, how they start to show up for physical exercise. But we also want to link them doing it for themselves. So it's not a matter of this meal can be found at Africa Tikkun. It's how can we make this a sustainable habit and process that's happening at home. And so we include gardening programs. We've linked it with our farming program. There's a lot of programs.
Can I come, please? Sounds very kind of like a thing I would love to do as a parent.
They said until 35, Benji.
I'm coming. I know I'm not 35, but I'm coming. Look, what you expose to kids is exactly what they're going to be drawn to. I'm seeing it with my 1-year-old son because lately we've kind of like tried to introduce him alternatives to porridge and those kind of things, but there's something that I don't know. I was like, the African father in me was like, this kid is gonna eat my belly. He must understand what sorghum is, and the older he gets, it kind of reverts back to that mabele porridge because it's kind of his thing. He enjoys it more than the plain porridge, right? And it made me think like it's exactly what you expose your child to that will actually determine what they're actually going to enjoy. And I don't think we as parents understand that power.
Yeah. And that food is very cultural, right? Like so the experience of eating is very communal in nature, and so the stuff you enjoy is so linked to the process in which it was made and how you sat down to eat it, and what it was associated with. And so there's a lot that we can do at a family engagement level just to shift, right? There's absolutely nothing wrong with porridge, right? It's delicious. It's a balanced thing. So what happens? What happens with the meal afterwards and the meal after that? What happens with the meal on the next day?
Yeah.
Right. So it's not to take away the stuff that we enjoy, the stuff that's beautiful at all. Is to just plug in information and knowledge so that we can balance it out and not have the crutch of, but this is expensive, we can't afford this, this is not necessary, this doesn't taste nice. We can really do away with some of that stigma around food.
Yeah. Well, some of the programs that you guys have implemented, are making sure that the change actually takes place and you monitor the change. I can see you guys say that you monitor these children's BMI twice a year to see exactly the progress that they're making. But outside of whether, they're losing weight or gaining weight, the visible, progress, what other progress have you seen in these children who are getting more nourishment in their meals?
So cognitive development, right? Ultimately, they tend to then enjoy school, right? When a child is healthy and they're being, their bodies are really being nourished, they show up for school, right? That tiredness, the lack of concentration, it all comes back to what are they eating, what's actually going into their bodies. And so the healthier they get, the more they move, the better they develop as well. And so ultimately we see it in school readiness, especially at that level. Healthy kids are just healthy all round. So that would be a big way. But also feedback from parents, right? So we really engage with parents to find out, is anything different from a home perspective? And so if they're giving us positive feedback, then we're doing something right. And, it's not always a hit. Sometimes it's a miss. We feed something and they're just like, this is not working out for children. And so then we have to adapt. It really is just a collaboration with parents.
Now, something that we also take for granted are the liquids, what children are drinking. How is essential is also this element?
And the sugar, right? Children are not drinking enough water. Yeah. That's also one of the things that we've noticed. So with each meal, right, we're not giving juice. We're actually making sure that children have had water. And the more you drink water, this even as an adult, right? Like if it's plugged in the first couple of days, before you know it, you're actually asking for it. Yeah. So we're making sure that they're drinking water and not necessarily juice. Juices once in a while. I mean, every child deserves a juice box. So, but just making sure that they are hydrated, because a lot of the sugar is coming from what they're drinking. We're adding a lot of sugar into the tea just so that they can drink it. All of those things are ways in which we're just trying to make sure that what we are providing and the information that we're then giving parents as well. So even when we're sending back some of the foods, because of the areas in which we work, some of the parents would bring, food in the bags. We have to just pull the parent aside and speak about, this is not necessary. We're going to provide this at the school. And
I love that. Well, we'll wrap it up there, Nelly. We've run out of time. Where can we go to find out more about, this particular initiative, but also other initiatives by Africa Tikkun?
Please go to africatikun.org. That's Africa with a K, TIKKUN.org.
Thank you so much, Nelly, for your time. That's Nelly Zembe, Group Head of Monitoring, Evaluation and Research and Learning at Africa Tikkun, speaking to us about a really important program that focuses on malnutrition on children. So very important. Just because your child looks healthy doesn't particularly mean they are. We need to make sure that the right nutrition is given to them. It's 11:30 though, once again, and it's time for us to get our latest sports news with Musibudi Makura.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
Thank you so much, Palesa. We'll start with cricket news. So South Africa's Proteas wicketkeeper batter Karabo Meso says she feels emotional about reaching her first ever 50 ICC over World Cup semi-final as a youngster. So this achievement came just after the Proteas secured their spot in the semi-finals when the game between New Zealand as well as Pakistan was abandoned because of rain in Colombo this past weekend. As a result, with 8 points from 5 matches, the Proteas cannot be caught by the White Ferns, who would still trail them by a number of wins even if they were to win their final 2 game matches. Now, speaking to SABC Sport, Meso adds that it has been a very long but rewarding journey for the senior women's national team.
It's like, I don't even have words. There's a lot of emotions for everyone. Let me just say that, first semis in the ODI World Cup, which is really amazing for us, like as a youngsters. I've been in T20 semis, under 19, but this one really means a lot to me and the team. Yeah, it's quite a long journey and a good journey for everyone in the team.
So the Proteas have won 4 out of the 5 games so far this year's World Cup, leading them to the World Cup semi-final. Meso says she's happy that they've managed to silence the critics this after losing their opening match to England.
I'll say us, obviously, the team, like people saying the turning point from the first game, England, and look at us qualifying for the semis. I'll probably say it's, if you look at it at a bigger picture, people would have never thought that we're going to qualify for semis. It takes grit, like we've grafted so hard to earn a spot for the semis.
Meanwhile, England booked their place in the semi-finals of the Women's ICC World Cup with a thrilling 4-run victory over the co-hosts India in Indore. Now set a target of 289 to win. India were cruising at some point at 234 for 3, with opener Simriti Madhana well placed on 88. But the opener's soft dismissal caught down the ground of spinner Lindsay Smith in the 42nd over and was the turning point as the co-hosts completely threw away their winning position. The run rate climbed, and although DP Sharma's gritting half-century kept India's hopes alive, the middle order buckled under the pressure. With a 14 needed from the last over, Smith held her nerve, with India finishing on 284 for the loss of 6 wickets. On to football news now. Simba SC underlined their pedigree with a professional 3-0 away win over Nzinginzi Hotspurs of Eswatini this past weekend. Wilson Nangu opened the scoring in first half stoppage time to break the deadlock before Dennis Kibu sealed the victory with 2 late goals in the 84th minute as well as the 90th minutes. Now the Tanzanian Giants, semi-finalists back in the 2020-2021 season, dominated proceedings and barely allowed the hosts a sniff at goal. That result puts the Tanzanian side in firm control heading into the return leg in Dar es Salaam this coming weekend. And finally, in motorsports news, Max Verstappen claimed a dominant USA Grand Prix victory ahead of Lando Norris as the pair made significant inroads into Oscar Piastri's Drivers' Championship lead. Verstappen followed up Saturday's sprint win with a lights-to-flag triumph for the Red Bull side at the Circuit of the Americas, while Norris made a late pass on Ferrari's Charles Leclerc to salvage second place as his McLaren teammate Oscar Piastri could only manage a 5th place finish. A third win in 4 races for Verstappen brings the Dutchman within 40 points of Piastri with about 5 rounds of the 2025 season remaining, while Norris closes to within 14 points of the title lead. Let's hear now from Verstappen.
We found a good way with the car. It's as simple as that. Of course, we put some upgrades on the car, but we understood our car a bit better, where we wanted to perform better, and every weekend we try to achieve it. Some weekends, it's better than others, but in general it's been way more straightforward the last few weekends compared to before those races. So that's what we need to try and extract out of it now every single weekend. Yeah, I think we need to be perfect till the end.
Right, so that's a wrap of your morning sports news right here in Channel Africa. For any sports stories you'd like to share with us, our email address is newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11714 4459. For Channel Africa Sport, I am Musibudi Makura.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
Mix Vibration sur Channel Africa.
Qu'est-ce qui vous a amené à dire ça? Est-ce que vous avez observé un certain nombre d'événements dans la vie? Est-ce que c'était par rapport à une expérience? Est-ce que vous avez rencontré des choses qui vous ont dit il faut de la patience, comme ça les choses vont venir au bon moment et les bons dieux pourra peut-être me visiter?
Oui, c'était justement un conseil que le Seigneur m'avait inspiré pour donner à son peuple, parce qu'il y a la plupart des gens, pendant que Dieu bénit les autres, ils pensent que Dieu les a oubliés, et pendant que Dieu ouvre pour les autres, ils pensent que peut-être Dieu n'a pas pu écouter leurs prières. Alors, ce n'est pas le cas. Alors, Dieu bénit tout un chacun de nous avec son temps. Donc, le temps de Dieu est toujours le meilleur dans la vie de tout un chacun de nous.
Mix Vibration, tous les dimanches de 18h à 19h, temps universel.
Thank you, Musibudi. Let's get our latest business news now with Bunte Headbush.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
Thanks, Palesa. Good morning. In our top story at this hour, South Africa's Minister of Electricity and Energy, Kgosientshe Ramokgopa, says they'll be engaging with tertiary institutions, specifically on engineering courses, to ensure that adequate skills are developed for the rollout of the Integrated Resource Plan 2025, aimed at resolving the country's long-standing electricity crisis and reviving the economy. Government plans to invest $127 billion in a comprehensive energy transformation strategy. The minister announced the country's pivot to cleaner energy sources and less reliance on fossil fuels. Addressing the media in Pretoria, Ramokgopa has stressed that government remains committed to creating economic opportunities.
The biggest risk to us not achieving this IRP lies in two areas. The first one is the skills pipeline. So it means that the skills that are required to support this program are in short supply, and that's why we'll be engaging with the universities and the TVETs, especially on the engineering and the built environment and the issues of nuclear. The second risk that sits here is that our industry has been decimated. If we are going to ramp up this build program, we are likely not to have an industry that is positioned to take advantage of these opportunities.
The South African civil society organisation Watercan has called for the immediate resignation of the City of Tshwane Mayor Nasiphi Moya. This after it was revealed that the city spent almost $45 million on water tankers in the 2024-25 financial year. According to the organisation, the almost $45 million represents half of Joburg Water's capital expenditure budget, which could have been used to repair the city's water infrastructure. Executive Director at Watercan, Dr. Ferial Adam, has described this as a flagrant misuse of funds.
This is happening across the country. It's in Makanda, it's in Knysna. Now we've got Tshwane everywhere. Joburg is a mess. So the mayor of Tshwane must resign. He must step down because 777 million, we can show you what that could have been used for in terms of infrastructure. If the buck does not stop with someone, this kind of nonsense will continue. And we have to, as civil society, start demanding that this ends. If you cannot control the money as the mayor, then you should not be in that position.
A U.S. jury has returned a historic verdict against BNP Paribas, finding that the French bank helped Sudan's government commit genocide by providing banking services that violated American sanctions. The federal jury in Manhattan ordered BNP Paribas to pay a combined $20.5 million to 3 Sudanese plaintiffs who testified about human rights abuses perpetrated under former President Omar al-Bashir's rule. Lawyers for the 3 plaintiffs, who now reside in the U.S., said the verdict now opens a door for over 20,000 refugees in the U.S. to seek billions of dollars in damages from the French bank. The trial focused on whether BNP Paribas' financial services were a natural and adequate cause of the harm suffered by survivors of ethnic cleansing and mass violence. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio and Liberian Foreign Minister Sarah Baisalo Nyanti have met in Washington to discuss expanding cooperation between the United States and Liberia, particularly in the critical minerals sector. The U.S. State Department said over the weekend that discussions between the two emphasized the strategic importance of Liberia's vast mineral resources, including iron ore, gold, and other critical minerals essential to global clean energy and technology supply chains. The department said talks explored potential investment opportunities and avenues for greater U.S. participation in Liberia's mining industry, with the goal of promoting sustainable development, job creation, and mutual economic growth in the country. China's top leaders are starting a 4-day gathering in Beijing to decide on the key goals and aspirations for the rest of the decade. The country's highest political body is expected to address issues like the slowing economy and the trade war with the US. The BBC's Nick Marsh has more details.
Recently, China's 5-year plans have focused on high-quality development and putting China at the cutting edge of things like chip making and artificial intelligence. Until now, China's relied on advanced chips from the United States. But that could change if the next 5-year plan includes President Xi's call for new productive forces. That means developing high-end tech, yes, but with the national security twist of making China self-sufficient.
And now for a look at the indicators. One US dollar in Nigeria is trading at 1,468 naira this morning. In Botswana, it's 13 pula 25. Kenya, the dollar is trading at 128 shilling 39. In Zambia, it's 22 kwacha 71. Moving to the BRICS countries, $1 in Brazil is trading at 5 rial 40. Russia, 81 rubles 11. In India, it's 87 rupees 98. China, 7 yuan 12. And South Africa, $1 is trading at 17 rand 34 cents this morning. $1 is trading at 74 pence to the British pound and 85 to the euro. Looking at commodities, gold is trading at $4,261 per ounce, platinum at $1,600 per ounce, while the price of Brent crude oil is at $61.09 a barrel. Those are your business news. For any business stories you'd like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or give us a call on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa Business, I am Bontle Hetbush.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African perspective. Channel Africa and you have got something in common. The thirst for knowledge. The rhythm of Africa. The pulse of the continent. This is Channel Africa. The African perspective. Benjamin Moshatama and Palesa on the move. are on Open View's audio bouquet. Channel 628.
This song tara mama nangande song is a dog. Den dong tara makaya kate song is a dog. Mi moga mi jona va kang kang when a song is a dog. Maybe saw do if a vat when a song is a dog. Gumbo ganga va karde botna e jang ma yebu. Dumaka wu ba young and kula ba kurma wua. Yeba yala ba bana ye bonda ba bom gampag. Yebi kobi pinga ye ma jang ba bom gampaga. Kurgan ya wua. Gumbo ga wua. Jamgan le boga, jamgani sani. Yege 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 yege. This song tara mama nangane song is a dog. Den dong tara makaya kate song is a dog. Mi moga mi jona ba kang kang when a song is a dog. Baby saw do if a vat when a song is a dog. Gumbo ganga ba karde botna e jang ma yebu. Gamaka wo ba young and kula ba kurma wua. Yeba yala ba bana ye bonda ba bom gampag. Yebi kobi pinga ye ma janga ba bom gampaga. Kurgan ya wua, gumbo ga wua. Jamgani sani, jamgan le boga. Mi war mi jona, kurgan ya wua, gumbo ga wua. Jamgani sani, yege 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 yege. Kurgan ya wua, gumbo ga wua. Jamgan le boga, mi var mi jona. Yege 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 yege. This song tara mama nangane song is a dog. Den dong tara makaya karte song is a dog. Mi moga mi jona ba kang kang when a song is a dog. Baby saw do if a vat when a song is a dog. Gumbo ganga ba karte botna e jang ma yebu. Gamaka wu ba young and kula ba kurma wua. Yeba yala ba bana ye bonda ba bom gampa. Yebi kobi pinga ye ma janga ba bom gampaga. Kurgan ya wua, gumbo ga wua. Jamgan le boga, mi war mi jona. Kurgan ya wua, gumbo ga wua. Jamgan le boga, jamgani sani. Yege yege mama ye junta mama. Yege 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 yege. Aburu yesa yesa mama ye junta na kwa. Yege 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 yege. Man makela junum dum ya matanga ngali gama jongi.
Hey, 11:50 Central African Time. We've had a lovely show, haven't it? But the music makes it even more grand. She was once a member of Zap Mama, that wonderful a cappella African crew that's selling nyonyo with one titled Songwe Seto. And then we've got MFR Souls, Tuto the Human, and DJ Maporisa with one Azish. Were you dancing to that one, Brian?
I was.
It's only a Monday. Hey, good music right here on Channel Africa. Let's take a break.
Mix Vibration sur Channel Africa.
Qu'est-ce qui vous a amené à dire ça? Est-ce que vous avez observé un certain nombre d'événements dans la vie? Est-ce que c'était par rapport à une expérience? Est-ce que vous avez rencontré des choses qui vous ont dit il faut de la patience, comme ça les choses vont venir au bon moment et les bons dieux pourra peut-être me visiter?
Oui, c'était justement un conseil que le Seigneur m'a fait inspirer pour donner à son peuple, parce qu'il y a la plupart des gens, pendant que Dieu bénit les autres, ils pensent que Dieu les a oubliés, et pendant que Dieu ouvre pour les autres, ils pensent que peut-être Dieu n'a pas pu écouter leurs prières. Alors ce n'est pas le cas. Alors Dieu bénit tout un chacun de nous avec son temps. Donc le temps de Dieu est toujours le meilleur dans la vie de tout un chacun de nous.
Mix Vibration tous les dimanches de 18h à 19h, temps universel.
Benjamin Moshatama and Palesa on the move. Benjamin Moshatama and Palesa on the move.
Ang popa mo ang power high mo ya oh halalela bampontsha tsela bantataisa bangsupisa monneteleng teng bare hona o tla fihla mo yang teng bare nna le nna o tla fihla mo ke yang teng le nna ke tla fihla mo ke yang teng le nna ke lo fihla ke ne ke sa tsebe hore mona ke lefatsheng masisapelo a hlasela o sa lebella ke ne ke sa tsebe hore mona ke lebaleng la ntwa le hlolang fela ke lerumo la moya ho fumana pholoso ke ho latela la haelentswe le reng ke nna tsela le nnete le bophelo lefokolong ya ka o mpha matla mohau wa ntatela lefifing ke ena kganya ere le nna ke tla fihla mo ke yang teng le nna ke lo fihla mo ke yang teng le nna ke lo fihla mo ke yang teng le nna ke lo fihla
That is Male, beautiful one titled Ke Tlo Fihla. We've arrived to the end of On the Move, but before we say goodbye, we have to bring in Lulu Gabu to let us know what's coming up on today's Africa Update. Good morning, Lulu.
Good morning. What
How are
have
you
you
doing?
done to the weather? I'm good, thanks. And how are you?
Ish,
guys?
this
Honey,
weather
we found it like this.
doesn't love us.
Sorry.
No,
Not on our
definitely.
side.
But hey, it is what it is. It's a happy Monday nonetheless. And we are going to be looking at a number of big stories. Congolese political opponent Seth Kikuna arrested upon his arrival in Kinshasa.
Sure.
So over the weekend. While the arrest, we're yet to find out the exact details on that front. And then a manhunt is underway following a robbery at the Louvre.
I saw that. The jewelry's gone.
The jewelry's gone.
Sure.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Did they become too relaxed with regards to security? What happened
During the day.
During the day, as they opened, and these people were all also there. So it just it begs crime is everywhere, guys. So let's just face the reality.
Sure.
As much as there are security measures that are put in place, the criminals are also moving with those times and security measures. Yeah. And also we're looking at opposition parties in Zimbabwe condemning ZANU-PF's resolution to extend President Emerson Mnangagwa's term by 2 years to the year 2030.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So much that's coming up on the show. Stay with us right here on Channel Africa. That's Lugabu on the Africa Update. We getting out of here, but thank you for joining us on all our social media platforms and giving us your thoughts on X. Let me check that X poll, what you guys had to say as we get out of here. We're asking, do vlogs from poor areas empower creators or exploit their struggle? 50% of you saying it depends on intent, and then 33% of you were saying a mix of both, while 17 saying it's poverty porn. Let's get out of here, buddy.
Yeah, let's do that. Have yourself a fantastic day. We'll leave you in safe hands right here on Channel Africa, and we'll be back tomorrow. Have yourself a fantastic day.
God bless everyone.
Set and be ready to go. On the move with Palesa and Benjamin Moshatama.
Young cast, last. Now everybody go to breakfast. Shayo.